All right, folks. Let's see how this works. I've got a new microphone, so it's going to be a new experiment. And I don't have anyone watching, so it's a good time to offer an introduction. You know how for a lot of different TV shows they say recorded live in front of a studio audience? Well, this is recorded live without any sort of a studio or any sort of a live audience. Okay, never mind, there's already a live audience. For those of you who are just stumbling onto this, my name is Ilya, and I am the self-proclaimed Dark Lord of Optics. I did not come up with this thing, but somebody called me that and kind of stuck, and I rolled with it. And it's tongue-in-cheek and nerdy, and I like it. This is going to be the 6th live stream episode I have. It looks like I have a couple of people watching, so as always, sound check for the people watching this live. Please post in a comment, tell me if the sound is going through. If nobody posts, I'll assume there is no sound. Okay. In the meantime, before I get on with the topic of the day, I'll make a couple of announcements. And I apologize, I'm not always looking at you because the camera is there, the computer is here. So excellent, thank you, Serge. To see what's commented, I have to look at the screen, and I forget to look at the camera. So I think I'm looking at you, I might not actually be. But anyhow, the way the structure is gonna go, I'll make a couple of announcements. Then I'm gonna go over my chosen topic of the day. In this case, red dot sites versus Holo sites versus prismatic scopes versus low power variables. I can go into as much depth as you want, guys. I want to explain a couple of things, sort of address some common misconceptions, and I want to talk a little bit about difference in speed between the different sites. There are a lot of misconceptions out there. Okay. There are a lot of my phone recognized my voice and started answering some sort of question that I didn't ask. What was I? Yeah. There are a lot of different misconceptions about how they're used, which one is faster, which one is slower, what the differences are. And the answer on which is faster, slower, etc., is really not a simple ranking, right? It's there are some gradations there, and I'll try to go over them the best I can. Anyhow, so first on the announcements. The biggest, and if you follow my channel, you've probably seen it already. My website for a good number of years now has been opticsthoughts.com, and that will remain as sort of a repository of all the stuff that I've written in the past. But my sort of new home in the web is going to be this place. My basic problem is that I talk about guns and politics a lot, and that means that eventually people like me will all be thrown out from YouTube, Facebook, you name it. I kind of have to find a place on the web, if I want to continue doing this, and I do, where I'm unlikely to be banned. And locals.com is founded by Dave Rubin and presumably a few other like-minded people, and their take on this stuff is decidedly libertarian. So I have good confidence that this can be my home for quite a long time. Another thing that locals.com does is that they don't really do much of anything with advertising, and the system is set up so that the supporters of my community, my channel, can pay some monthly contribution. I need to figure out what I want to set it as in order to be able to post and comment. And when I make a post, I can either make it open or restricted. My plan is to make most stuff open, But when I started the whole YouTube memberships thing, several people approached me and said that they would like to support the channel, but they're not excited about paying YouTube, which I kind of get. So locals.com would be the other option. You can go and subscribe there, and whatever perks I offer to paying members on YouTube, I will also offer, obviously, to people who support me on locals.com. Yeah, that's basically that. The whole structure, etc., is I'm still trying to figure it out, but it seems like a nice blogging and media sharing platform, so it should work. It should work well for me. If you just go to darklordofoptics.com, it will forward to my locals website. Okay. Another sort of a news of the day is I got my advanced copy of the Guns N' Ammo's Carbine magazine, and I've got 2 articles in it. One is Infrared 101, where I kind of go over how infrared works, how's it different from what we usually call night vision, things like that. That's sort of the type of thing that I do for my day job. Well, related. And I've got another piece there on the Steiner CQT. I talked about it briefly during the last live cast. It is a very impressive thing. I'll do some videos on it. When I was working on an article, I still had the prototype. Now I have the production version of the CQT, and it's even more awesome. Okay. I'm also going to be doing, I had enough questions about digital rifle scopes, so I procured an ATN X-Sight 4K, this sucker, and I'm going to take a look. Just started looking at it. Some things I like, some things I don't. But you know, the digital rifle scopes definitely have come a long way since I started looking at this. Okay. All right. That having been said, there are a few people watching, so let's get the show on the road. Well, let's first show some examples and define some terminology as far as the weapon sights I want to talk about today go. I have a few here on my desk. You can see some stuff here. You can see some stuff behind me. So I'm going to show you some examples of red dots, holographics, low power variables, and talk a little bit about the differences. Let's take the March. This is that March 1 to 10 dual focal plane prototype. Nice scope. Okay. So red dot sight versus holographic versus prismatic. Oh, I did not bring my 1 power prism. Okay, you'll forgive me. Versus low power variable. First, let's cover red dot sight versus holographic. They kind of accomplish a somewhat similar thing. They work very differently. I have a graphic, and I'm going to share it on the screen. I just hit the web to look at the differences. Oh, there we go. This should do it. And let me share my screen, and you will see. There we go. Okay. I lifted this thing off of the web from Breach Bank Clear Breach. Okay, or something, or Breach Bank Clear. One of the two. It's kind of a nice simple schematic. It doesn't quite talk about the lenses correctly, but it shows you the basic difference. The biggest difference is that the red dot sight is usually powered by an LED of some sort. The holographic sight is powered by a laser of some sort. One of the significant differences that causes is the battery life. Lasers draw a lot more energy. It's coherent radiation. Generating it is more complicated, and it's also narrow band, right? Both the laser and LED may look red, but in terms of the spectral bandwidth, laser is going to be a lot narrower, and that introduces some additional advantages. But for the most part, it's laser versus LED. The way the red dot sight works, there's an LED emitter, it hits a lens. Here it's shown as blue. It's shown as straight, but it's never straight. It's actually a curved lens. Let me see if I have a, yeah. It is actually a curved lens. And that curved lens has a special coating that only reflects back the light from the LED, and all other colors pass through. So when you're looking through the body of a red dot sight, it's like looking through a window. Okay. All right. Except now you see me again. Okay. It's just like looking through a window if everything is done correctly. With the holographic, you actually are looking through a window. The big difference between most, although not all, I'll show you an example otherwise, of red dot sights and holographics is that with holographics, the recorded hologram of a reticle, right, is projected into your field of view, and you never have to look through any curved pieces of glass. That makes a big, big difference. With a red dot sight, there is a curved surface that is a mirror for one wavelength only, red or green or whatever the color of the red dot reticle happens to be. There are different ways to generate that kind of a red dot reticle, and found another good graphic, which was very helpful. Since I found it, I didn't have to draw it myself. I am going to show it to you in a moment. Where's the other? There you go. I hope you can see my mouse. So there are three different schematics of how you can get this dot going. The one on the bottom is clearly not used, because if you have your projection source right in the middle of the field of view, then you're obscuring part of the field of view. Nobody really does this. The ones in the middle and the top are used. The most common way of setting up the typical reflex sight is the middle picture, where you have this light source with a little reticle on a little bit below or to the side of the line of sight, so that you have unobstructed view, but you are looking through a curved window, right? It's in principle, this curved piece of glass is not supposed to introduce any magnification, but in practice, because you're looking at it from a different angle depending on where you are, because the curved surfaces may not be perfectly parallel, sometimes there is. And that's one of the things that can cause distortion in red dot sights. Okay, and there is one of the ways to get rid of that distortion, to make the window of the red dot sight look undistorted, is this top picture, where instead of using a curved mirror, you use a lens, you project the dot up, and here there is basically a flat mirror, right, that reflects this one color back to your eye, and all the other colors come through. So now you're looking through an angled but flat piece of glass, which generally creates a much better corrected picture. You're not seeing this weird distortion and stuff like that. You're just looking through a flat window pane. Okay. For examples of different types of these sights, I have a couple of things to show you. And by the way, guys, if none of this is making sense, please tell me. Okay, here is a conventional red dot sight. This is a new primary arms SLX. It's a 25 millimeter sight with the ACSS reticle. It's actually a very decent red dot sight. If you look at it from this side, right, you see it looks a little reddish, etc., because the lens out front here is coated in such a way that red is reflected and everything else is transmitted. Okay, so this is the example of a fairly standard red dot sight. And if you have something like this, if you look inside, you will see close to the ocular, at the end where you're looking at, there's a little housing there where the LED emitter sits. And the lens on the front, the objective lens, is what creates, that is the curved optic. Okay. I also have here a macrolight red dot sight. This is the foresight that I'm working on a review on for a little while now, but I've talked about it some, and I like it quite a lot. And this one is made differently. And if you look at it carefully, I wrote an article on Meprolite for Guns and Ammo, and they actually make it digitally available. If you search for Meprolite and my name, Ilya Koshkin, you will find a digital copy of the Meprolite article. I'll add it to the comments later if I don't forget. Remind me if I don't. The way this one works, you're not looking through any curved surfaces. There is no curved mirror. And if you look at it carefully, you see in here, there is like an angled flat piece of glass. And when you look through it, the view is incredibly undistorted. And several Meprolite full-size red dot sights utilize the same basic approach. There is this fairly massive base. It's a good size red dot sight. And all of the curved optical surfaces are in the base. They are not in this top part that you're looking through. All the curved surfaces are here, and only thing up top here is a flat angled surface. So the view is quite undistorted. Now, it doesn't mean there is no parallax. Parallax depends on the curved surfaces. You may still have parallax, although this particular one has very little parallax. But the view is going to be undistorted, a little bit closer to what you get with the holographic. Holographic has a bunch of other advantages. Doesn't matter what you look through. You can break half of the hologram, still see it. There are different advantages. Here's an example of a holographic. That's a first generation Vortex Razor UH1. If you want to do a size comparison, so a small red dot sights like Shield SIS versus a holographic, right? There's no such thing as a holographic this big. Because of the lasers, batteries, optics, etc., there is no real reason to try to make an ultra small holographic. You probably can, it's not simple, but you can. Holographics get a little bit bigger. EOTech is roughly the same size. It's shaped differently, but it's the same size. Is this all making sense to you guys? Yes, no, maybe. The crazy Russian confused you entirely? Not yet? Okay. Then I shall proceed. Okay. So the internal construction of the reflex sights and holographics is substantially different. And one of the earliest arguments I've seen, I remember people arguing which one is faster, Aimpoint or Holosight or EOTech. And it goes on to this day. And in principle, for most people, holographic sights are very slightly faster, but the differences are not huge. And if you train, they are really okay. Thank you, Rashad. And if you practice, the differences are not huge. But holographic sights are legitimately faster, simply because the way they work, your field of view is completely undistorted. You may have some color variations, but in terms of geometric distortions, there's nothing. Okay. The interesting question is that what is the speed difference between a red dot sight that's constructed like this Meprolite, where you're not looking through any curved surfaces, versus a holographic? And this is one of the things I'm kind of playing with. I'm not a terribly good shot, so I'm not really the best example of somebody to try to figure it out. But at my initial take, I think in terms of speed, I can't tell the difference between the two. Okay. And nowadays, when a lot of reflex sights have gotten more sophisticated in terms of reticle patterns and all that, this thing shows me, well, this one has actually augmented reality sight. It gives me all sorts of on-screen information if I want and things like that. So given, if there is no longer a speed difference, under what circumstances would you choose a holographic? Well, there are several. One most obvious one is that with proper holographic, there is zero forward signature. Although with a red dot sight like this, there is also very, very little, if any. So if that matters, that's a significant consideration. If you have significant astigmatism, a holographic might play better for you. Although it depends on what kind of astigmatism you have. It's a little bit different for different people. Some people just are used to it and prefer the look. And I'm not planning to give up holographics anytime soon, but there's arguably more sophistication happening in the development of modern red dot sites than there are in holographics, right? What are the advantages? While red dot sites do work well with magnifiers, in principle, holographics do work better with magnifiers than red dot sites do. Because for a standard holographic radical, where it's basically a circle and a dot in the center, the dot in the center is 1 pixel of the screen, and it is smaller than 1 MOA. It looks like 1 MOA to your eye because that's basically the minimum your eye can resolve approximately. But when you magnify it, you have a finer and crisper and better aiming point. But aside from that, there is a reason you see a lot more variety with red dot sites. It's a bigger market, and there's arguably more sophistication there. Okay. Now, where do prisms and low power variable scopes come in? There is a core difference that I don't see covered very much. People are saying, "Oh, they're all 1x sites." No, a low power variable, when it is on 1 power, has magnification of 1 if it's set up correctly. I have a prismatic somewhere, a blade from Swamp Fox that is truly 1 magnification. But 1 weirdly is still magnification. The red dot site or a holographic is not a 1 power site. It is a non-magnifying site. The big difference is that there is no image formation happening with a holographic or red dot site, meaning you're just looking through it. With a prismatic, whether it's a small prismatic or a good-sized prismatic or with a low power variable, the image is captured by the lenses, recreated somewhere inside the scope. There's a focal plane somewhere in there, usually more than once, usually twice, and then projected back out where your eye picks it up. So this goes through a lot of different optical elements and gets massaged. So first you need to capture it, and then you need to reproduce it. Okay. Excellent. So guys, I see your questions. Please keep on adding comments, and once I'm done with my initial rant, I'm gonna go through the comments and answer whatever questions you have the best I can. So keep in mind the fact that I'm not answering immediately doesn't mean you should stop asking questions. I'm gonna go through my speech, and then I'll go through every single question. Okay. What was that? Yeah. So non-magnifying and 1 power are 2 different things. In a rifle scope or a prismatic, whatever else, the objective. Can you give me 1 sec? My kids are yelling. Kids, I ask to be quiet, please. Preteen kids just don't take no for an answer. Where was I? Yeah. In a conventional rifle scope or prismatic, so there's an objective lens system that takes whatever scene you're looking at and creates an image, usually right under the turret, somewhere around here. Okay. The erector system here retranslates that image to the second focal plane, usually right around here. That's where magnification happens, right? And for the 1x magnification, right, the erector system here retranslates the image from here to here, so it's a very specific size for a given eyepiece, and the eyepiece projects it out to your eye, so it looks the same as it looks to the objective. Okay, this is how unity magnification works. None of that stuff happens with the red dot or with the holographic. The best red dot gives you an image like you're looking through a flat window with just a dot somewhere, with just a dot in there, right? This is how they're supposed to work. And when it does anything other than that, when you have parallax, distortion, whatever else, that is a deficiency of design or manufacture. Okay. Okay, hope this makes sense. But it is an important point. One of the things that is not given a ton of credit is the change in perspective. It's not a big change, but it is there. And some people are more sensitive to it than others. So if I'm looking through, let's say, a holographic, okay, well, it's here, 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 here. The object I'm looking at looks the same. Okay. Now the holographic thing, if it's further from my eye, it looks smaller. If it's closer, it looks bigger, right? But whatever I'm aiming at looks the same. With the rifle scope, when I am looking through it, if the object is fairly close, it does not look exactly like it would through a holographic, although the objects are exactly the same size. Why? Because when you're looking through the scope, the perspective of where you're looking from is that of the objective. Well, technically focal, but yeah, of the objective, right? So the perspective of what you're looking at is as if you're here when you're actually back here. Okay? Weirdly, that makes a fair bit of difference. Not a huge amount, but a fair bit. And this kind of stuff changes how fast you go. Okay, I've been ranting for about 20 minutes now, so I'm going to offer one more thing. And then I'll wrap it up and I'll look at the questions and wherever else you guys want to take it, guns, optics, politics. There was a presidential debate. An hour and a half of my life I'll never get back. Anyway, speed. What is faster? Are low power variables on 1 power as fast as red dot sights or holographics? Are 1 power prismatic scopes as fast as the red dot sights or holographics? The answer is not always simple, and the answer is not always straightforward. The guys at Stockholm did a ton of experimentation on what is faster, and they basically concluded that with a well-designed low-power variable like Vortex Razor Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, basically something that gives you nice undistorted 1 power, a field of view, a bright visible dot, and all that, they've basically concluded there is no real speed difference between that and the red dot. There are some units who claim that the ear tags, the holographics are a little bit faster, but overall, I've seen a lot of people claim that, and I've seen them shoot, and for them, there is no difference. There is almost no difference for them because they are professionals and they train a lot. And their presentation is so good and so consistent, and they're so well trained that if there is a difference due to the type of an optic they use, the timer doesn't really show it. Even from complicated shooting positions, even from unorthodox stances and all that sort of stuff, these guys are so competent that you give them anything probably, and they'll just, after a little training, they'll be just as good or close to it. For the rest of us, it is not quite so simple. I shoot a fair bit, not as much as I'd like, not as much as I should, but I shoot a fair bit. I'm still not a terribly good shot. For me, I am, if on a known course, I am clearly faster with a holographic or red dot sights, slightly faster with holographic than red dot, than I am with a 1 power prism or with a good quality low power variable, as long as they have a nice bright and visible reticle. On a course where I have to do target identification, I am clearly not faster. Okay? I'm clearly not faster. And, it's a good question. When the angles and situation, etc., get weird, then the need to identify the target and figure out what it is I'm shooting at seems to be the limiting factor for me. Okay. That sort of, that's kind of sort of how it works. And I've seen a lot of people shoot. It is extremely common for people who don't train all that much to be faster with a more user-friendly site. And the most user-friendly one overall is probably the holographic or a macrolite type red dot sites. Although any of the red dot sites are pretty straightforward. They're very forgiving of how to get behind them. And they will be a little bit faster for you if you don't train all that much. Okay, but if you train all the time, it almost doesn't matter which one you choose. Okay. Yeah, I think that's basically it. I think that's probably what I want to wrap up with the initial rant and go look at the questions and see where we go from there. Some of them may get lengthy. One of the things I forgot to mention, I'm doing a pretty good size comparison of different low power prismatic scopes. I mentioned I have the 1 power Swarm Fox blade. I have a 1.5 power compact ACOG, 1.5 to 16, which I like quite a bit. I have a 2 power primary arms prismatic. That surprised me with how nice this thing is. I definitely exceeded my expectations. And one of the more interesting things for me, I have these 2 3-power prismatics, and I want to show them to you side by side so you understand why it's so interesting for me. Here's a Swamp Fox Trihawk, and here's the Burris RT3. Notice the size difference? It's going to be really, really interesting to see how they compare. The Trihawk has this huge field of view, the Burris not bad at all. I just got the Burris, so I haven't really had much time with it. But having 3-power prismatics of such different physical size, is going to be really interesting. So I'm going to spend some time running these, and I also have a 4-power Alcan. And like I said, I have a 1-power Swamp Fox blade. Running them side by side and comparing them to red dots, prismatics, LPVOs is very interesting. One of the subjects that interests me considerably is the effect of magnification on practical engagement. So I'm not a high-speed, low-drag guy. I've never been in the military. I've never gone through the SEAL training course. I'm a nerd engineer who likes to shoot guns, right? In a practical situation where you're just not trying to shoot everything that moves, if target identification is important, what effect will magnification have on what you're looking to do? That's one of the reasons I got this little 1.5 power compact ACOG. I want to see how much slower I really am in 1.5. Conversely, in very low light, do I get an advantage of having a little bit of magnification, not much? It is magnification with a bright dot, and I can do the naming concept, right? So I can do the stuff with the ACOG and all that. Well, with a very low power prismatic, keeping both eyes open when I go fast, what effect will it have on my shooting? That's going to be very interesting thing to do. Okay. All right. And before the Q&A, I am going to pour myself something. Well, by the way, so I've announced there, so my whiskey glasses are here. I have 3 types. They all have my logo. This one has a 45 caliber bullet. This one has the 45 caliber expanded bullet. They're all copper bullets. There's no lead. And this one has a 30 cal. So kind of like the one with the opened up expanded 45. And I'm gonna go back to the Yuichi single malt. And now I'm ready for the Q&A. Good stuff. Okay, starting from the beginning. So the one-eyed fat man referenced by Stephen is Cyclops Joe. Joe's a good buddy. We have a mutual friend, and we've known of each other for quite a long time. We've chatted recently. For my next live cast, 2 weeks from now, I want to talk about air guns and practicing with air guns and stuff like that. So Joe's going to come and join me. So 2 weeks from today, which will be October 15th, I'm going to get Joe to come on a live cast with me and spend some time chatting. Joe is arguably the funniest gun guy on YouTube. Always enjoy watching his videos, and as he will tell you himself, I'm not shy about pointing out his flaws, but I really don't like to do it behind the back. I prefer to do it in person, so I want him to come on a live cast. Yes. So the way this works with red dot sights or holographics is that the subtensions, the space between different dots, remains constant under magnification, right? If you have, let's say, a holdover dot, like, okay. So this particular red dot sight has the ACSS reticle. So there is a primary chevron and 1, 2, 3, 3 holdover dots, okay, for different distances. I have mild astigmatism. That basically means that when I don't have anything magnified, all these extra dots are kind of like a blurry mess. I just, not a terribly blurry mess, but basically I'm using it as one big ass dot and I go fast. When you add a magnifier, which can be focused to your eye, all these holdover points really start making a difference. Arguably the biggest case in the modern market to still have a magnifier is the development of BDC type reticles in red dot sights. Now all of a sudden you can really extend the range of what you can do with a red dot. On Sniper's Hide, it was just an interesting thread. The gentleman bought a 6-power aimpoint magnifier, and I've played with it. I did an article on magnifiers for the Red Dot magazine earlier this year, so I spent a lot more time with magnifiers than I used to, and I kind of have a new appreciation for them. Not for everything, but there is definitely a place for magnifiers, and if your red dot sights has holdover marks, then a magnifier definitely makes a big difference. Okay. I just realized that I'm not talking to anyone, so I don't really need to have this unless I want to hear myself talk. Do I want to hear myself talk? Yeah, in case the microphone craps out or something. Okay. All right, so you also came here because Joe sent you. All my thanks to Joe. It is a valid concern. For purely home defense use, if you do not have astigmatism, your best bet probably is one of the modern red dots that have this very, very long, very, very long battery life, because that's probably the most trouble-free solution, right? This thing's supposed to have about 20,000 hour service life. I want to look at one of the sites I want to look at in the near future is SIG Romeo 4T. Between the solar panel and the regular battery, it's got, I don't know, 100,000 hours of projected life, something like that. So basically every 10 years I can replace the battery. For pure home defense weapon, that is probably your best bet. That having been said, I'm pathologically paranoid. So any home defense weapon I have will have some sort of auxiliary sighting system, backup sights of some sort, etc. So depending on how your gun is set up, red dot is going to be a little bit more forgiving, or a holographic if you're okay with battery life, and an auxiliary sight of some sort. I happen to like the XTI sights from XS sights. I think they're very quick, and they seem to work quite well for me. They do require you to rotate the gun, but that's kind of how I train, so that works well for me. The exit pupil of high-quality, low-power variables, like let's see. For example, for the Razer Gen 3, it's about 10.5 millimeters on 1 power. And I did not really have any issues with that out of unorthodox positions. But there are some low power variables with much smaller exit pupil on 1 power, and that can play a difference. For the way I present the gun, it seems like once we're at about 9-10 millimeters or thereabouts, it's pretty fast. But under stress, if somebody's breaking into the house, I don't know. I'm a couch warrior, really. High quality red dot is probably your best bet overall. That is indeed a very, very nice red dot sight. I'm generally not a huge fan of full-size red dot sights. I do prefer the slightly smaller ones. It doesn't, for me, there does not seem to be any real difference in speed. And full-size red dot sights do add bulk. The one exception to that is the previously mentioned Meprolite sights and some other stuff that's similar, where I'm not looking at any curved surfaces because it's a very undistorted holographic-like view while giving you a long battery life. Okay. So I have a couple of videos on focusing the ocular, and it isn't a terribly simple question. So if you're talking about a low power variable or something like that, you should adjust the ocular so that to minimize distortion on 1 power, so that you have the flattest possible field of view. It may sacrifice a little bit what you get in high power, but 1 power ultimately for a low power variable is the most important thing. So that's what you should adjust for. If you know how to do it so that you don't let your eye accommodation screw you over, you should find the far and near focus, where it goes from blurry to sharp. You should have that two locations and should set up your eyepiece smack in the middle of them, not right at the transition, but back in the middle between two transitions. For my eyes, there is usually no true transition with most scopes. I kind of have to screw it in all the way, almost, and it's right there. But if you have more normal eyes, then on the plus and minus diopter end, there will be two transition regions, and you want to figure out where they are and count how much revolution it takes to get right in the middle between them. That's likely to be your best bet, but look at the image, adjust for the least amount of distortion. Yeah, there is, and it's pretty significant. There are different schools of thought on this. There are some people who want a red dot sight or holographic where the housing disappears as much as possible and all you have is a bright aiming point. Other people kind of like to see the housing to a certain degree, but it needs to be fairly symmetric and all, so that you can use it as basically as a huge ghost string. There was a story with Shield sites. This is Shield SIS. They have a similar looking site called CQB, I think, or CQC. CQB, I think. Well, it looks the same. So British SAS service replaced their aim points with these, claiming that they're more durable. I wasn't there for the test, but they generally know what they're doing. On the other hand, Shield is a British company. It's a British military that may have played a role. But no, I've not been able to break this thing, and I tried. Like, I seriously tried. They often, for house clearing and stuff that happens at close range, they don't even bother to turn on them. They don't even bother to turn on the dot, because when you look through it, right, the housing kind of provides sort of a tunnel thing. And whatever you can see through the window, and it's a fairly small window, that's one of the reasons it works. Whatever you see through the window at across the room distance, whatever you see through the window, pull the trigger, and it's dead. But for that to work, you have to set up the dot at the right place. I can't show you guns during a live stream. We learned that 2 weeks ago. YouTube kills the live stream. If you set up the window right here, very close to your eye, you can be way off when looking through it. The further forward you go, if you imagine a triangle between your eye and the housing walls, the more lined up you will be, right? The golden position on the AR, a red dot should be right at the front of the receiver, right? Then if you have a consistent cheek weld, you don't even have to see the dot, and whatever at close distances, whatever you see through the window is pretty much done, okay? It really depends on how you train. I do not like housings that are too prominent. For example, on this guy, that's this primary arm side. This is pretty good. This is small, this is small, but the rotary knob is a good size. I oftentimes, I'm not big on button, but sometimes I prefer if it's all really smooth so that the housing just looks like a large gold string and there's a dot in the middle. So sometimes I just prefer that. For me, it's kind of in the middle. I want to see the housing, but I want to see it as something symmetric. I don't want to see a million different protrusions and stuff like that. Okay. Correct. Bright white light and close distance. You don't need to see the dot at this distance. I went and experimented with it, right? When you're trying to go really, really fast, you don't really like. I'm kind of aware of the dot being on there, but bring it up, see it in the housing, pull the trigger. Okay. But if you don't have the white light, the dot is pretty important. So I shoot both right and left-handed. And when I shoot right-handed, I usually have both eyes open. When I shoot left-handed, I try to do the cross-eye thing. That doesn't work too great for me. I can do it with handguns, sort of, but not so much with rifles. So when I shoot from my weak side, I close the off eye. In general, there is a good reason to keep both eyes open. That reason is not really situational awareness. I've seen that bandied about, that, with one eye, you see less, etc. Yeah. When you're under stress, there's going to be so much tunnel vision, you won't see anything around you anyway. The biggest difference, biggest argument for keeping two eyes open is balance. The way we balance ourselves in this world, if you have two eyes that work, we rely on information from both eyes. If you close one eye, your balance goes off. Note, in terms of pure accuracy, the best shooters in the world are the guys who do this kind of Olympic style shooting and things like that. So watch how they shoot. It's very educational. Doesn't directly transfer to what we do, right? But it kind of does in some ways. And notice that they're using one eye take. They never close the other eye. They have this little glass over there that's kind of a blurry thing, but they keep the off eye open, right? So standing there, both eyes open. There's something here. On all he's doing, he's making sure that his off eye does not see the target, but sees everything else. And the reason they do this is to maintain balance. The moment you close one eye, you will start listing, and that will make you slower, and that will make you less accurate. Okay. Depending on how severe your, by the way, nice logo. I like this, Richard. Depending on how severe your astigmatism is, it may or may not give you too much trouble. The way I see red dots, it looks like a little comet or a little star, depending on it's different on different axes. Some people see it as like a splatter of crap, and that's not terribly useful. Aiming with a red dot is different than aiming with an iron sight or a reticle. You should basically continue looking at your target, and when the dot is kind of on it, you pull the trigger. You never really focus on the dot. And for close range use, the fact that the dot is not perfectly small and round makes no difference. For me, at least, it doesn't. It does not make me slower. It does not make any real difference. But if I want to extend the range a little bit, that does. I do know people for whom the whole thing becomes a blurry mess and they can't use it at all, and it bothers me. It bothers them, because they can't, because there's so much, the aiming point is such a mess that they can't get themselves to look through it, and really look at the target. If you cannot do that, if your astigmatism is sufficiently severe, then you need something that with an eyepiece focus. So look at either a low power prism or a low power variable scope. Okay. It's not such a simple question. On a 1 to 4, I probably prefer second focal plane. 1 to 6, I can go either way. On a 1 to 8 and 1 to 10, I prefer front focal plane. But it really comes down to how they were designed and how nice the scopes are, right? So I would not buy a $500 1 to 10 front focal plane scope at this stage, because I haven't seen one yet that's worth it. Maybe one will come at some point. It really depends on how much you're looking to spend. Second focal plane scopes are easier to build. Front focal plane scopes are harder. I mean, there's a reason this is $2,000, right? And this is the cheapest good quality front focal plane scope out there, probably. Well, front focal plane 1 to 10. With 1 to 6, I can go either way, but it comes down to how the reticle is designed. If there's a bright dot, if the reticle is designed correctly, I can use both front focal plane and second focal plane. I generally lean a little bit more toward front focal plane designs. I am sort of a precision guy at heart, and even with low power variables, when I go shooting and practicing, I take way too many long shots, just because I like doing this. And front focal plane reticle often helps me with that. But it's kind of personal. The more the magnification ratio, the higher magnification ratio, the more I lean toward front focal plane. Good evening. It was a very nice, polite thing to say. Okay, I think I went through all the comments. My goodness. I think it's a record, but it's not even an hour. Okay, guys, anything else you want me to cover? I will stick around for a bit longer and see what you guys want mentioned. But this would, if we are done with all the Q&A at this stage, that would definitely be a record. That's what I need to do if I want to go to sleep at a normal time, not bring guests. I'll use this opportunity to remind you guys to subscribe or join if you want to support the channel. I really appreciate this kind of stuff, and this is all this. I will say this: of all the different things that I do on YouTube and online, the one I probably enjoy the most is the Q&A. Okay, I got another question, Chen. No. Thermal optics are getting cheaper. You're getting a lot more for your money than you did a year ago, but not quite enough yet. I have not seen anything really inexpensive that I thought was worth buying. have a very specific close range application, if you have a very specific close range application, you don't really need resolution. There are some decent options out there. But if you're not itching to get a thermal right now, you don't want to spend too much money, wait for a little bit longer. It's not too much I can say, right? But that's kind of the world I live in, you know, for my day job and stuff like that. And things are changing, stuff's changing. If I were to buy a good quality thermal right now, I would still end up spending $7,000 or so, and that's just too much money. Yeah, it's just a little bit too much money. $2,000 thermals right now, in my opinion, are still not quite worth it. Much more competent than you could get for $2,000 a couple of years ago, but give it another year, and I think you'll see a lot of development. Okay. Delta Striker 126. You mean this guy? What would you like to know, Tim? It is my under 1K. This is probably my go-to recommendation for low power variable scope right now. It is in the same general performance range as stuff like the second focal plane SIG Tango 6, Athlon Kronos 126, Vortex Razor. It just performs well. It's a really interesting scope. It's a very no frills design. Doesn't look like anything crazy. If you look through it, the reticle is simple. It doesn't seem like much. But when you look through it, the eyepiece shadow, the ring around the image is very thin. It is exceptionally easy to get behind. The illuminated dot is seriously bright. Let's see if I can I line this up so that you guys can actually see it? There you go. There you go. That's how bright this stupid thing is. Okay. So it's difficult to line up. It is fast. It is seriously fast. It is more or less as fast as any low power variable scope out there. There is a reason why Gen 2 razors are very popular. And it's the same reason why I like this thing. The eyepiece and field of view on the Gen 2 razor is very slightly bigger than this guy, but it's close. And this is what, $750 for now, something like that. Like I said, I told the guys at Delta to raise the price, but it's on them. I am not aware of anything under $1,000 that is as good as this guy. I mean, if you look at my low power variable recommendations, I basically recommend the Burris RT6, so that's been discontinued, and Delta Hornet might take its place. I'm kind of playing with that. Then I like the 1-10 Swamp Fox Arrowhead. It's a very well designed scope and offers a lot for the money. I like the 126x24 Hawk Frontier. Optically very good, well designed reticle, illumination is not very bright. And then it's this. And I think the Razor Gen 2 is slightly better, but not by much, if at all. Probably slightly better. But would I pay $1,200 for a Razor Gen 2 when I can get this under $800? Probably not, right? So the next, to me, if this is not doing it for you, the next step up is the Razor Gen 3, right? It's from this, $800, whatever it is, to $2,000. Haven't really seen anything in between that's sufficiently better that would make me want to give this up. Okay. So I don't know what else I can say. I'm really impressed with that guy. It's just a nice scope. Jared, Delta new reticles. The Striker is not getting new reticles that I can disclose. There is a new scope called the Javelin. which is a 4.5 to 30 by 56 in $1,000–1,200 mark, somewhere there. I haven't seen it yet. It has a couple of new reticles designed by some guys in Scandinavia. That SM something. They look promising. I've seen the drawings. You know, I'm friendly with the guys at Delta. They sent me the pictures, and I thought they were good reticles. But I have not seen the Javelin live yet. I'm sure I'll get my hands on it eventually, but right now I have a bit of a backlog of stuff to test, so it's going to be a little bit. I'm running out of time, fundamentally. Okay. The Javelin obviously sits under the Striker. It's a high-quality scope. It is Chinese manufactured, but it is not. I know what scope they're using, and it is very good, but I don't think it's quite as good as a Striker. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oh, okay. That's all right. So to follow up on the inexpensive thermals, no, don't buy the SIG Echo. As much as I love the SIG guys, they're good people. This is just a bad idea, and I'll explain why. In a conventional rifle scope or prismatic, okay, let's take a prismatic. This is primary arms to power. When the eyepiece is set up correctly, right? If I take the scope away, there's no adjustment, meaning my eye is accommodated, is in a relaxed state as if it's looking far away. Looking far away is more relaxing for our eyes than looking at something right here. That's why there are eyepieces, okay? In a SIG Echo, what you're looking at is directly at the LCD screen. That means your eyes have to focus on something up close. When you're really focused on something that's right in front of your eyes, how good is the situation awareness? You have no idea what else is happening, right? Ever seen somebody walk on the street looking at his cell phone? Does he see where he's going? No, he's blind and deaf, and basically an organ donor in waiting. Okay? It's just not a good idea. High-quality thermal scopes have a tiny little high-quality screen in the back, and then there is an eyepiece, not too dissimilar. Well, it is not quite the same, but not too dissimilar from an eyepiece in a conventional scope. And what that eyepiece does is it makes the image generated by the rear screen look like it is far away. It projects it out to you, simulates long viewing distance, right? And that greatly helps with situational awareness. Damn, they should really raise the price. Tim is talking about the Striker. Okay. Not really. I mean, different ways of doing this. You know, it's honestly, I don't really occupy myself with this too much. I don't clean them unless something is obviously dirty. The biggest, most important thing is never wipe them with anything when the lenses are dry. So you'll scrape them and scrape off the coatings. Anything that says for cleaning optical glass and optical coatings is perfectly fine. Most of it is more or less the same thing. Acetone, a lot of things like that will generally clean the glass really well. The problem is that outside of the glass there are often gaskets of all sorts, and acetone, while cleaning the lenses really well, will eat through the gaskets and your scope will no longer be purged. Like isopropyl alcohol is fine. All these pre-motion wipes are fine. If there's a lot of dirt on it, take a little brush and kind of brush it off, and make sure you never clean the lens dry. Beyond that, I don't really have a specific regimen. Don't get too crazy about cleaning the objectives. If it's, if when you're looking through the scope, it looks okay, that's good enough, right? If you look at the objective, there's something minor on it, but it doesn't make any difference when you look through the scope, don't clean it. Basically, don't push it. Okay. So in the US right now, Delta is sold by two people, by Ed Gun West and by Darn Fine Shot. If you go to my website, www.optics.locals.com, I just it's listed there in one of the comments. Both of them are kind of actively working with Delta. Both seem to be good guys. And they both, I believe, have the Striker in stock, but I could be wrong. Look, Jared, this is really personal, right? It depends on how much you love magnification and how much weight you are willing to sustain. One of my favorite general purpose scopes, precision, and a little bit of everything in the $1,500 range is this guy. This is the Element Optics Nexus. I already managed to scratch. It's a 5 to 20 by 50 front focal plane made by Light Optics Works. I have a review out on it. Really like this scope. Everything is really nicely worked out, good optical quality, excellent mechanical quality, super repeatable. And I'm not a magnification hog, so for me it is enough. In the $1,500 range, between that and the Delta Striker, depending on what size you like, that's probably where my recommendation would go. But there are other good options. Under 700 gets trickier. So I just published my review. It's going to go live shortly. It's available to members for now on my YouTube channel. So for paying members, when I upload videos and make them available to paying members, and then eventually they make it out onto the open YouTube. I have a couple of videos on the Strike Eagle in the $600-700 range. It's a really nice scope. I did the bulk of the testing of that scope on my Tikka T1X on a 22, and it worked really nicely for me. There are some quirks, like with any not terribly expensive scope, but overall, I think it punches way above its weight class. But it's a good size scope. It's not hugely heavy, but it is a good size scope. But it is right around $600-700 range. So what you mean is a precision type thing. Then that would probably be my recommendation. If you are not chasing magnification, but you'll be spinning turrets a lot and all that, it's aging a little bit, but SWFA 3 to 15 by 42 SS scope is really robust, has really excellent tracking. So if it's something where you'll be spinning the turrets a lot, that's also a very good option. I'd probably look at that. I have at least one of those. Okay, here's a question I missed. So a low power variable means something that starts on 1 power. Most of these are not super light. The lightest high quality one is probably, pardon me. The lightest high quality one is probably the Steiner P4XI 1 to 4 by 24. It's a 56 BDC type reticle, but if you're gonna take it out to longer distances, given that you're using short barrel guns, short barrel handguns, the BDC holes are not gonna quite match. But that's probably the lightest. If you want a 1 to 6, it's still the Striker. I think it's about 17 ounces, something like that. And those probably are it. One of the things I was gonna talk about in one of the subsequent videos or live casts is the best way to mount an auxiliary red dot sight. And one of the setups I keep on experimenting with is something that's mentioned in the next post, is SWFA ultralight. It's 2.5 to 10 by 32. It weighs less than 10 ounces, and it's a fairly decent, lightweight comparatively inexpensive variable scope. And I've got the red dot sight right now sitting on it piggybacked right on top. I like the offset red dot sights where you rotate the rifle, but when I shoot weak side, that's not terribly useful. So I'm screwing around with a piggyback red dot sights that's right on top of the scope. So what I did with this one, the setup I'm messing with right now, because the scope is light and the eyepiece is quite small, you can mount it fairly low over the AR-15 receiver. So that when I'm shooting standing or from any sort of weird position, my natural presentation, the scope is just below my line of sight, and I see the red dot that's right on top of it. I picked up this idea from the guy who goes by Birdie on Sniper Side. He uses LPVOs this way. And what it does, because the red dot sight is right on top of the scope, whether I shoot right-handed or left-handed, it makes no difference. And then when I go prone and I have time, then I can, the way my shape is, my face looks fat, but I have fairly high cheekbones. So I can really get down low on a stock. And in a prone position or just a steady position, I can comfortably use a low mounted scope. If I was going for a true general purpose setup, I'm kind of beginning to like that, but I'm still screwing around with it. Doing 1x, 1 power is kind of difficult, so most scopes that start at 1 to something have some weight to them. So going to 1.5 to something, 2 to something might save you some weight, but there's just not enough lightweight scopes out there. Yeah, there we go. That's part of the answer. So yeah, so Leopold, the VX Freedom 1.5 to 4x20 is tiny, and the SWFA 2.5 to 10 ultralight is also very, very lightweight. It's a good way of saying this. One of the sort of interesting questions there is what constitutes a general purpose setup for you, right? So for a lot of people, general purpose is inside of 300 yards. So you don't need a ton of magnification for that. And if I was doing that, I probably might not even bother too much with the low power variable. I might do a prismatic with an offset piggyback red dot, or even a red dot with magnifier, right? For me, general purpose means a little further away because that's what I like doing. I like shooting a little further out to the limits of the cartridge. So for me, because of that, a 2.5 to 10 by 32 SWFA ultralight with a BDC reticle that works fairly decently for typical 2 to 3 ammo works really nicely when set up with an auxiliary red dot sight. Okay. So it kind of, depends on what you want to do. Yeah, so this is not uncommon, but here's the thing, right? So if you never use the low power variable on 1 power, you don't need the low power variable, you need something else. A lot of what you're paying for a good quality low power variable is to get that 1x. Okay. Yeah, you're talking about that tribe, right? TRYBE. Is that what you're talking about? It's I've seen it. I haven't tested it. I don't like giving up 1 power. I mean, it's easily removable, not that easily. So for sighting, screwing around, yeah, I can see how that's a good idea. But as a general purpose tool, I don't know. Because I haven't had a chance to play with it. I know the guys who developed it. Because I haven't had a chance to play with it, I don't know what effect, if any, it has on image quality. So I can't really tell you. It's been somewhere in my list to get my hands on one and play with it. But I have not yet had a chance to do so. Okay. Yeah, I crapped all over the 5 to 25 by 56 colors. And then turns out they were, they asked a couple of people who know me whether I would be, that if I can be convinced to retract my review or something like that. I can't be. I mean, I think Collis made some design mistakes with the 3 to 18 and 5 to 25. And the catch is they're not bad scopes. Mechanically, they're absolutely excellent. Optically, they're generally not bad, but the field of view is narrow and depth of field is shallow. And what happens is that, a few years ago, that would have been amazing. But in the current marketplace, that is extremely competitive, extremely competitive. It's just not good enough. I had colors side by side with a bunch of other fancy scopes, on my, hold on a second, my tripod fixture. You guys hopefully have all seen this thing. It goes on a tripod, and I can put 6 rifle scopes next to each other, all pointing in the same general direction. I had 6 different scopes on this tripod fixture, including the Collis K5 to 25. Like when you're looking at this side by side, you can't hide anything. Side by side, everything comes out. Yeah, and optically, Collis was not worth the $3,000 they want for it. Now, mechanically, it's excellent, and fundamentally in the scope, good reliable mechanics are arguably more important. It's an aiming device. But if you're paying $3,000, you don't want to compromise too much on optics either. And it's not like I was just comparing it to the Tangent Theta. That's a lot of money. There's Minox for $3,000, optically better. Leupold Mark V for less than $3,000 was very comparable to the Collis, right? So if I get the same basic optical quality, decent mechanical quality, and all that out of a $3,000 Collis or $2,200 Leupold, I'm going to go get the Leupold then. Because if the Collis was $2,200, it would be wonderful, amazing. For $3,000, I think it's just too much. Now, the Collis low power variables I like. The 1 to 6 and the new 1 to 8 looks very good, but I've spent some time with the 1 to 6. I thought it was a remarkably nice scope. But the latest high magnification stuff I don't like too much. It's not my thing. Oh, this is referring to the Doppler. Yeah, I'm leery about these kind of add-ons. I think there are some ways to do it better, but until I have a chance to test this tribe Doppler, I don't really have any strong opinions. I think I need more. I bet that's what you guys logged in to watch me pour a nice Japanese whiskey into my glass. My bullet glass, excuse me. Okay, let's see. So I think I covered the last of the questions for now. I'll stick around for a little bit longer. I'll talk a little bit about this Burris RT3. So I just got this thing. It's a 3 by 30. It is tiny. The reticle is illuminated, not bad. It's quite bright. It's really pretty easy to get behind. It's going to be very interesting to see. You know what this reminds me of? If you guys use magnifiers, so Vortex and ADM and EOTech both introduced about a year ago this micro 3-power magnifier. In terms of the overall external size, this looks freakishly like that 3-power magnifier, as if maybe it's the same manufacturer. They took that magnifier, plastered a reticle on a prism, and added some illumination, a battery. It's not a bad thing. That magnifier is really nice. I wonder if that's what it is. If that's what it is, this is going to be a very, very strong contender. Because that's a nice magnifier and it's proven to be robust. It remains to be seen how well it's going to hold 0. Is it off? Yeah. One thing I will say, the radical is quite small. It's really interesting. For speed, you can have good speed with magnification. This is the Swamp Fox Trihawk. The reticle on this guy is huge. It's right in your face. And the field of view is large. So it's going to be very interesting to see, with these two side by side. This guy has significantly larger exit pupil. Let's see if I can try to show you. So let's see if you guys can see it. All right, guys, green illumination, you can kind of see it. There you go. Nice and green. So it gives you an idea of the exit pupil. This one is red illuminated. Exit pupil is smaller. It's going to be very interesting to see how they stack up. I was really surprised with how tiny that RT3 is. Okay. So I assume you're looking to extend the question where I was saying that a 2.5 to 10 by 32 ultralight is a good option. Once you're trying to take this to 1,000 yards, things change a little bit. 1,000 yards is difficult, and if you want to do 1,000 yards well, and with 6mm arc, you can. You need not just more magnification. You don't really necessarily need more magnification. You need something that will focus well at 1,000 yards. So I've used the Schmidt and the Razor Gen 3 well, but one of the reasons I'm so interested in this 1 to 10 March is that it has side focus. And when you start really going out to distance, side focus becomes important. This is one of those things where to do this well, you're gonna start spending some money. Not just for magnification, but for side focus, consistent adjustments and stuff like that. Tell me a budget, right? So it's difficult to talk about this without a specific budget in mind. If you give me an idea how much you want to spend, I can make better recommendations. And it still comes down to, do you need the scope to have one power, or is this going to be accommodated by an auxiliary red dot sight? Okay. If you do not need one power, I wish there were more good quality 2 to 10 scopes, but there aren't a whole lot. So I'd be looking at one of the high quality 3 to 15s, with tangent data probably being the best, but something even like a Vortex PST Gen 2 3 to 15 by 44 is actually quite nice. Excuse me, not as light, but very nice. That with the offset red dot would work very well, for example. But it's it's a bigger setup. Okay. So give me some idea whether you need 1x in a scope and whether how much money you're willing to spend. So this is a kind of a almost production prototype. It's a 1 to 10 by 24 with dual focal plane reticle. So on a second focal plane, it's a bright fiber dot, and the front focal plane, it is some mil hashes. It's the same size. It's what's it's designed March calls the shorty. I don't have. They have a proper, single piece mount for it. I don't have it on here right now because it was sitting on my tripod. I was looking at it. It's a nice scope, and it kind of promises to combine, the best of all worlds and stuff like that. Bright dot and the ranging reticles, second focal plane and front focal plane in a very compact package. So if everything works out, I just recently started looking at this. If everything works out well with this guy, it could be the best, kind of a general purpose thing because of side focus. Okay. But if you do not need 1x, don't pay for it. Find something else. Night Force 2.5 to 10 by 42. I think it's a little overpriced, but there isn't a whole lot like it out there, so it's not like there is a lot of competition. Honestly, for a lot of stuff like this, I have two SWFA 3 to 9 by 42 scopes. They look very unimpressive on paper, but they work so well. And one of those with an offset red dot is a really nice SPR type setup for me, and it's a 19-ounce scope instead of being something heavier in its front focal plane. I've been lobbying a lot of different manufacturers to do something else, and with very limited luck. Another March scope I'm looking at, I've talked about it briefly in the past. It's a 1.5 to 15 by 42, second focal plane. This is really nice. This with a red dot would be a really nice combination as well. For the way I shoot, maybe front focal plane would have been better. This one is second focal plane, but can't argue with the quality. These are nice scopes, and this general range it tops out at 12 to 15, and goes down as far as you can stretch it without too many compromises. That is probably the best way to do a general purpose scope. If you want to keep it compact, and I really don't see enough of this out there. I think that's a hole in the market that nobody is filling. Okay. I'm enjoying this. Okay. Where were we? Okay. TA31. So I don't remember Trigic designation, so let me figure out which one is TA31. Okay, so I did a review of a bunch of 4-power Prism scopes quite a while back, and one of them was this guy. And this is one of them, this is one of my least favorite ACOGs. I like some ACOGs, I don't like that one. And let me find a link for you, and I'll post it in the comments so that you can. No, it's on my Optics website. I'll dig that up momentarily. This is older. This is several years ago. I looked at the Elcan, ACOG, and Hammer, Leupold Hammer. Leupold Hammer no longer exists. And here's the link to the article. So it's in the comments. I should pick it up there. The Leupold Hammer no longer exists. They discontinued. I did not like the ACOG. So it's a 4x32 ACOG. It has very, very short. It has very, very short eye relief. It's the one that was used by the military, so it got a lot of cred, and they're durable, robust scopes, but they're really aging. And honestly, there's just better stuff out there. And if you're looking at the prismatic, you kind of have to, look in the mirror, try to figure out what you're trying to achieve. And you also need to, I don't know how old you are, but ACOGs don't have an adjustable eyepiece. As you get older, this adjustable eyepiece becomes more and more important. I'm 44. I have a few prismatics like this guy. This is a compact ACOG that I actually like a lot. I have a few prismatics without an adjustable eyepiece, And for now, I mean, I wear contacts. Otherwise, I don't have. I'm very nearsighted. And I can still use them, but the writing is on the wall. In not so distant future, I will not be able to use them well without a headache. So in the current market, the 4-power ACOG would not necessarily be my favorite. I kind of have the Meprolite clone of that, the Meprolite X4, but I don't know. It's not necessarily it's not necessarily where I would go. For that money, you can do better, I think. Okay. So I slightly prefer the milk quad. It gives me a little bit more, and the way some of the line thicknesses are done, I think that works a little bit better. But both work just fine. So March does very well optically, right? If you asked me what my favorite no holds barred precision scope is, it's still tangent theta. I mean, I like Marches. I own a couple. They serve their purpose. They're very, very good. If you're looking for something with high optical quality and lightweight, March is kind of where it's at. You sacrifice some depth of field for it. There's certain other things that are a little bit different on the March, and it's what you get for the lightweight and high erector ratio. But overall, they're very well made scopes, and the build quality is just spectacular. So I do like March scopes. It's not an ideal scope for every application, but especially if you're looking at a combination of flexibility and lightweight, March is probably ahead of the curve. Yeah, the fact that the military had used it forever means one thing and one thing only, that the military had used it forever. And don't draw any other conclusions. It's a well-made, robust site, but it doesn't mean there aren't better options. You're not in the military. Well, I assume maybe you are, but if I were, like I said, it's depending on how old you are, but if I were looking for a prismatic scope, ACOG would not be at the top of my list. I don't think it's very expensive. I don't think it's worth the money. Honestly, I've been messing with this much less expensive Swamp Fox Trihawk. It's a little bit heavier. Now that the view through this thing is huge, the reticle is usable. I mean, it's $350. I'm not so convinced I'll take an ACOG over this. It might be more durable. I don't know. Time remains to be seen. But when I had a choice, I returned all of them and I purchased the Alcan Spectra 4X. Also without an adjustable eyepiece, still works for me. I've been using that since I wrote that article several years now, and have no regrets. I think it's the best one of the four power prismatics. The Alcan is the best one. So just something. What did I drop? Yeah, just something to keep in mind. Burris XTR2 line has been on sale recently in the $600 to $800 range. So with the XTR2, I have OCD. If something fell on the floor, I have to pick it up. So with the XTR2, it varies by the model. There were a lot of complaints on optics when they first came out, mostly justifiable. And Burris fixed some of them. Still not the best scope in the world optically, but mechanically extremely robust, and the later versions optically were not bad at all. The three models I like in the XTR2 lineup are the 1-8, that was actually made in Japan, the 2-10 by 42, Philippines, and 4-20 by 50, also Philippines. The 3-15 and the 5-25 and 8-40 I didn't like very much. So depending on which model exactly you're looking at, it may or may not be worth the money. If you can find the 1-8 or the 4-20 for $600-700, I think it's a very good deal, assuming the reticles work for you. Does Delta Javelin equal to Ares CTR? I probably shouldn't comment on that, but you can look at the specs side by side and make your own conclusions. I do, on paper at least, like the reticles in a Delta Javelin more than I like the reticles in the Ares ETR. No. There is a reason why PM2 costs what it costs. Delta Striker is a wonderful scope. And I think, the Delta gets good quality control out of Light Optics Works, and they do a very good job, but it does not beat the PM2. Now, if you're talking about what you get for the money, it might very well. Right. To me, where the Delta Striker and Razor Gen 2, this $1,700 range, to me right now, that's kind of the sweet spot of performance for precision rifle scopes. Once you get past that, you get into diminishing returns, but you still have returns. The more expensive scopes are still better. They might not be sufficiently better to justify the cost difference, but they still are better. It's possible, but it's not probable. Yeah, so K4i is a very nice one. Carlos brought it to SHOT Show once, I think, and I looked at it. It was very nice. I've never had a chance to test it, and I don't think it's available in the US. Delta Striker and the Delta Titanium you're talking about are not related designs. I mean, they're both made by Light Optics Works, but they're different designs, different generation and all that. The magnification range is the same, but they're not the same designs at all. So it's not an improved version, it's just a different scope. Yeah, there is a special one-piece mount. I actually have one down in the garage somewhere. I need to put it in this one. It's a 30mm ring in the back and a 33mm ring on the front that clamps around the objective. It works very nicely, a nice compact package, and in that mount, this thing is exceptionally robust. Okay. Originally, the ultra shorts, and you'll see the shorty marches, shipped with one ring that was really wide ring that only held it back, so I played with it a little bit. It works well if you're careful, but if you press an objective, you will change your point of aim, point of impact. So they developed a different mount, more conventional one-piece mount, but different diameter rings in the front and in the back. Okay. Cheers. I'm really enjoying that whiskey. Okay. So the NX8 has a very bright illuminated dot, which is an advantage. The shorty 1-8 March does not have a very bright dot. In every other way, optically, March definitely walks all over the NX8. It's a substantially better scope. But for low power variable, bright dot is important. So I don't own the NX8. I've played with it. I do own the 1-8 March shorty. Excuse me. And for my use, it works great, but I have a somewhat unorthodox use for it. I'll probably make a video about that. And it works very nicely. It's a really nice general purpose setup, and I've learned to use its strengths and overcome its limitations. But as a general purpose low power variable, you generally want a bright dot in 1 power. The problem with the NX8 is that it's decent on 1 power, but it's tricky to get behind. The exit pupil is quite small. And optical quality, once you get above 5 or so, starts really getting not great. And it's still, an $1,800 scope, and I think for $1,800 it's just overpriced. I like the Night Forces Attacker F1 quite a lot, but the NX8 is not my cup of tea. So I don't have anything to do with Spur. and don't recommend them. Masterpiece arms seemed like a good mount. I've seen it. I haven't spent too much time with it. I have not used the MDT. I like Badger a lot. I like Seekins. It's very perfectly reasonable. I prefer one-piece mounts whenever possible. They're usually going to be straighter. You don't depend on the rail being so straight. So you'll be putting, with a high-quality one-piece mount, you'll be putting less stress on the rifle scope. My go-to mount is something called the odd mount, and that's what, how well you can see it on the Razor Gen 3, although I'm going to put it in a different mount to test it. This is called the odd mount. They're difficult to come by right now, but that's been sort of my go-to one-piece mount for a while. But I've tested quite a few. Richard Neer in Canada makes a nice mount. Air Attack, I quite like what I see. And like I said, Badger's kind of difficult to go wrong with. Geissler is quite good, though I'm not a huge fan of the clamp they use. And what else do I have here? Okay, here in the Leica PRS, this is the Air Attack mount, and it's actually quite nice. It's stiffer than it looks. Like it's well designed. The geometries are done intelligently. So I like this thing. It's done well. Okay. No. So Zeiss kind of completely gave up any pretenses of anything tactical. So they do this kind of a hunting thing with second focal plane reticles and all that. For long range, I think there are better options. On the lower end, Zeiss confuses me. They've got a bunch of stuff that I think they're just diluting Zeiss brand name. Higher end scopes seem decent, but Zeiss is a very confusing company for me right now. So outside of hunting, I'm not sure they do anything that's truly appropriate for the application. Semi-transparent reticle, which does not obscure the target. Do you have a specific reticle you're talking about? I can think of true examples of something like that. One is the Meopta dichroic reticle that shows you a color but doesn't fully obscure whatever is behind it, which is kind of an interesting thing that works fairly well. Another one is this diffractive reticle, like used in the Schmidt and the Razor Gen 3 and the Attacker and a bunch other scopes. And that one is, it's a good way of saying this. The reticle feature that's really bright, it's a grating. So it's a collection of very thin lines. So when the illumination is turned off, it's not black. It's kind of grayed out. So it's not quite transparent, but semi-transparent. From a standpoint of aiming, transparent reticle does not really give you all that much. In my opinion. So the value of a potentially transparent reticle is you can make it physically a little bit larger, so it's easier to pick up while still seeing some of the target. But I haven't really seen a truly successful implementation of that. Even with Meopta's dichroic reticle and all that, the actual aiming point is usually just black edged something. And some of the larger features are using the dichroic technology so that they stand out better. But for the actual aiming point, I'm not so sure it would work well, and I haven't really seen it well enough. The diffractive reticle, while it is not perfectly black, it's kind of grayish. So it's kind of grayish, but it's it doesn't come off as transparent. It comes off as grayish, but not transparent, and that works fine. So you're very welcome, James. Like I said, this is the kind of things I really enjoy doing. Honestly, I'm sort of an arrogant jackass. There's so much bullshit and mythology in this business. I really, really enjoy dispelling that when I have an opportunity. Yes. Honestly, there's most reputable brands work fine. I used Tetragon years ago. It worked very nicely. I've been using Slip 2000 products. They're very, very good. The biggest reason I was using Slip 2000 is that the degreaser is water-based, and I used to shoot and still do a lot of mil-surface firearms, and a lot of them have corrosive armor where there are some mercury salts in the primer. And when you clean out a barrel after that, you need some sort of water-based solvent because that takes out all those salts, and then you can clean normally. So I've been using Slip 2000 for quite a long time. I am trying a new lubricant. I think the company is called PFG, something like that. Let me. No, PFC lubricants. I'll pull it up in a moment. Yeah, protection first class. I've been experimenting with this one. So they did this. I ran into these guys at SHOT Show earlier this year. Company called PFC Outdoors. And they're adding 2 different scents to the gun oil, so it doesn't smell as much as like a petrochemical. Have a wife and kids, and after cleaning guns, if my hands, smell like a gas tank of an engine, yeah, it's not quite a good thing. So I got myself a little bit of that, and I've been screwing around with it, and it actually works very nicely. Good corrosion protection, good lubricity. It's not bad. I've used frog lube, and honestly, in the cold, it doesn't do great. For everything else, it works fine. Now, there's a lot of mythology around frog lube and a lot of bullshit by the founders, but it works okay. I've used Microlon, even more mythology and bullshit, but it works okay. I don't know. So if I were to point out one particular brand that I really liked, historically, I have a lot of mileage with it, would be Slip 2000. I think overall, I really like those things. But this PFC, Protection First Class PFC Outdoors, it's kind of growing on me, and just because the smell is less annoying. Okay. Let me show you what's on my screen so that you know what I'm talking about. Okay, this is not what you want to see. This is the screen that I see repeated many times. This. Hopefully you're seeing this. So this is PFC Outdoors, Protection First Class, this stuff. So they have this pine scent, and they have this earth cover scent. I've tried the earth one. It's actually not bad. There's a smell, but it seems to be less objectionable to me. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I'm not so sure. So I've made many attempts to convince Tangent to make something else a little bit smaller, and I don't know how interested they are. Their field of expertise is, ultimate precision, best turrets in the world, that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if they make something high magnification. Going low magnification, I'm not so sure. I've been trying to convince everybody and their grandmother to make like a 3 to 12 by 32 with truly good optical quality and all that, or 3 to 15 by 38. And so far, really no luck. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't talked to them about that. They just comparatively recently introduced the 1-6 striker, and honestly, like I said, it's not the sexiest looking thing, but it works so well. But I think they should ride this for a little bit and then see what else they can do. Yeah, probably. Look, so the attacker 7-35 is a really nice scope. But Tremor 3 reticle is a steaming pile of dog shit. If you want to talk about snake oil salesman, well, the guy who convinced the military to use that's probably one of those. I don't like Horus reticles. I particularly just like Tremor 3. If you train, anything is usable, but I think it's just a bad idea. Now, the 7-35 attacker with Meal XT reticle is a very good option. I think at $3,800 it's overpriced, right? But if you can get it closer to 3K somehow, absolutely worth it. Once you get close to $4,000, look at Zero Compromise Optics. If you want to spend a little more, look at Tangent Theta. Both ZCO and Tangent Theta are better than the attacker. Some of the Schmidts are excellent. Honestly, I really like the GR2, the grid reticle, and the Schmidt. I take that over Tremor 3. I take Zero Comp or Tangent over this. But it really comes down to how much you want to spend, and reticles are personal. The fact that I don't like Tremor 3 doesn't mean it doesn't work for you. So, yeah. So let's see. So this is in Optical 6, 5-30 by 56 with MRAD reticle, and I also have their 3-18 by 50 with the MRAD 1 reticle. And the reason I've looked at them very carefully is that I designed both of those reticles for the Opta. They're good scopes, for under $1,000 for precision-oriented scope. Optical 6 has a lot to recommend it, and it's easily one of my recommendations. And they seem to be well made. I have looked at a couple. They've been consistent. The reticle is decent. It's a good scope. And I don't know what to tell you. I have a couple of reviews on it. Look at my YouTube channel. So it'll give you some information. I go over the reticle and my reasoning when I designed it. And I've used it in a few comparisons, so there's a good amount of information out there. But Optical 6 is quite good. I haven't seen the lower powered versions, but 3-18 by 50 and 5-30 by 56 are quite nice. Yeah, bullshit. It's in either beholder. There is no particular round count that scopes last before failure. Some last a long time, some last less. Round count, on what caliber, right? Round count on the 22 is not the same thing as a round count on the 338 Lapua. So I don't know. I shoot quite a bit. I've seen just about everything crap out one point or another. A lot of the hunting scopes are built lighter. Whenever somebody says me, I shoot a lot and I have a lot of hunting scopes fail, 7 out of 10 times it's somebody talking about Swarovski Z6, right? So does it mean they're badly built? No, they're actually nice scopes. But I've seen a lot of Swarovskis fail. God knows why. Maybe people hunt with them harder. I have no freaking clue. Z6, Z5, Z3. I don't know if that's what you had. It's very, I know the return statistics on some of the brands, not for all, not for Swarovski colors. And for higher end scopes, there isn't really a ton of difference between return statistics. And the reason why people take scopes back, it doesn't necessarily mean they're broken. More than half the time, it's the end user not being able to tell his ass from an elbow and blaming his personal problems on equipment. Right. So I don't think that's, with most well-built scopes in the same price range, you can expect somewhat similar reliability. They're good scopes. The attackers are very, very nice scopes. Before the price went up, 7-35, I thought was an excellent deal. At 3,800, it's a little bit tricky. Yeah. So this is kind of a okay. I need a drink and a moment to think about how I want to describe this. Many companies make their true reticles so that they look cool. That is not a good design criteria for a reticle. A well-designed reticle should have everything you need and nothing that you don't. Okay, and it's better to not have something that you need, arguably, than to have a ton of stuff that you really don't need, right? So less is more. Delta 3 reticle is designed in such a way that you have some useful holes available to you, but when you don't need them, they don't get in the way. Tremor 3 reticle, for example, is designed in such a way that there are useful holes in there, but you can't find them because of all the other crap that's in there that you will never ever use. And reticles are a separate conversation. I can do a whole live cast on just reticles and never take a Q&A, and we'll be here for 8 hours. I designed reticles for a bunch of people. So Delta did this well. Midas stack reticle is done nicely. You want to set it up so that it's not too thin, so it's not too thick, so it doesn't get in the way, but there when you actually need it. And there is a little bit of an art in there, and way too many people get it wrong. Gen 3 XR reticle and tangent is done well. Grid reticle in the Schmidt looks busy, and actually use it works really, really well. MPCT 2 reticle and 3 in a Z-comp works well. MilXT reticle in Nightforce generally works quite well. I don't like how far down it goes, but aside from that, I really like the reticle. It's very nicely done. And Nightforce did it because Nightforce owns Horus, right? They used to have normal ranging reticles and then Horus designs, and they had to come up with something in between because Horus reticles, basically mosquito net designers wet dream. And Nightforce came up with MilXT, which takes some of the good things from the Horus and throws out all the crap, and that's a good reticle. Delta's LRD1T that I use is a good reticle. APS3, Athlon, and AP, I don't remember the abbreviation. A couple other Athlon reticles are quite nice. There's a good number of good reticles out there. I designed a reticle for March in 5-42x56 that I like quite a bit. It's a little bit busier than the one I did for Miopta, but there is a reason for it, different kind of scope. When the reticle takes half of your field of view, they did something wrong. Not yet, but I'm going to have one in 2-3 weeks, so ask me then. I'll be testing it and doing a review and all that sort of stuff. I have a couple of AK-47s. I don't have any AK-74s, so this will be my first one. And I've shot them. I don't own one. If your eyes are young and healthy, there's not going to be that much difference. If you practice quite a bit, there's not really going to be any difference. So I didn't like the 552 EOTechs too much. I've had a couple of them in this longitudinal battery thing. I had issues with battery contacts and stuff like that. With EOTechs, I really like the XPS type scopes, sights, and they work well. I am ever so slightly faster with an EOTech than I am with the traditional aimpoint. I'm not 100% sure why. I suspect it's the shape of the housing. But it is a small difference, and it only shows up if I don't have to think and just shoot. If I have to think, identify the target, and figure all that stuff out, that's the limiting factor. The specific sight is not what's slowing me down. Yeah, I probably would. Okay, so as a general rule, right, when I do a Q&A, you can ask You can ask anything you want, and you can also ask about reticles. Now, talking about reticles, it very much helps to have visuals, and I'm basically not prepared to do that today. I can answer some questions, but if you want something in more detail, I basically need to prepare a PowerPoint with a bunch of reticles, and I can walk you through them and explain what I like, what I don't like, and why. This is going to sound arrogant and very immodest, but accurate. I don't suffer from any sort of modesty, false or otherwise. The reason I do all the things that I do in what's called long form is that rather than try to force a particular decision on you, I try to explain my reasoning behind things, right? So there is usually a reason to my madness, and I'm trying to explain what that reason is in an attempt to equip you in the best way possible to make your own decisions. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy convincing people to do the same thing as I do as much as anybody else, but I want to convince you. I don't want to just tell you, right? Somebody out there said it's nice to hear I'm a subject matter expert. I am a subject matter expert, and I know enough about this stuff to understand that there's no cookie cutter solution for everyone, right? So I make my recommendations and I explain how I arrive to my conclusions. If you listen carefully, by the time we're done, I hope that you will be able to reason through your own preferences in a way that will get you to the right choice, right? Okay. Let's see. Sort of depends on whether you shoot subsonic or supersonic. $500 is not a simple price category for low power variables. So so there is a Delta Hornet. I just released a couple of reviews on it. Look at the videos. The one that I reviewed has a reticle that's designed for 56. There's a second version with a different reticle. It's more like a really weird looking milliradian small tree. I have one of those also. I put it on my brother's Blackout, and I did so for a reason. I'm gonna steal that gun from him, take some pictures, and try to do a through the scope video to explain why. So it's in the $400-ish range. That would be somewhere at the top of my list. And if you can get one of the Swamp Fox Arrowhead scopes in the $500 range, you should be able to. For example, now I'm going to shamelessly proselytize supporting my channel. So if you become a paying member, one of the perks I have for people who financially support my channel is a few discount codes and different stuff. One of them is Swamp Fox Optics, right? So I can give you a discount code that will save you some money. And this is not affiliate marketing. I don't make anything out of it. There's no kickback. I'm just trying to save you some money. So with my discount code, I think you can get an Arrowhead in the $500 range. That would be a good option. Which one? So there is Diamondback HP, and Diamondback Tactical. For a basic hunting scope, Diamondback is quite nice. Diamondback HP was actually quite decent, but I think they discontinued it. Diamondback Tactical is actually quite a nice scope for money, but it's aging a little bit. I'm sure they'll have a replacement soon enough. So on balance, I like Diamondback scopes, but not every model. So if you tell me specifically which model you're looking at, I can offer more information. No, I think it's too big. I don't think it's worth it. I think red dot sights are at their best before they get too big and heavy. Once you get big and heavy, like this type of sizes, this is roughly the range where I like them. This is bigger than I like, but this has augmented reality, overlaid screen, a bunch of other features. That's why I use it. But once you go to really full-size red dot sights, I'm not sure what you're getting compared to smaller ones. I have not seen a difference in speed. Okay, I think I need a refill. Highly recommended. German number 5. Number 3. This is German number 4. And I know number 4, number 1 is German number 3 radical. Hold on. Google to the rescue. Okay, this kind of 3 post radical. Yeah. Is this it? 1, 2. Oh, okay, I see. So, I don't think I've ever seen anything designed based on this one. So I like the German number 4 radical quite a bit, which is basically 3 thick posts and thin crosshair. And I like hunting reticles of this style that mostly keep the upper half of the view open for looking at stuff. But I like them with a couple of extra hold points. Vortex's G4 BDC reticle in the HDLH and HDLHT scopes kind of came out of my conversation with them, so I sort of take credit. And that one is a number 4 with a couple of wind holds, a floating dot in the center, now illuminated, and a couple of holdover marks. So it's a nice, simple hunting reticle that just gives you just a little bit more than the regular number 4 without getting in the way. I like those quite a bit. So. So I've shot quite a few different Grundles, and the most accurate one is probably the one I have now, although I am probably close to shooting out the barrel. Yeah, I think that's probably the one. So the Grendel that I have right now, it's an aging polygonal barrel from Black Hole Weaponry. Now they're called something else. I've had it for quite a while. The guy who built it for me was a complete jackass, and Scott Milkovich, I think, probably still in business, who was very difficult to work with. Everything was late, screwed my friend over, all sorts of shit. And but he lucked out into a good barrel for Black Hole Weaponry, and despite all the stupid things he did with it, the barrel is accurate. Probably despite him, not because of him. And I kind of did bad things to it a few times by grossly overheating it and all that, but for a little while there, it was shooting about as well as I can, right? So there are a bunch of people that will tell you how they shoot quarter-inch groups at 100 yards all day and all that sort of stuff. I am not capable of that. I've shot quarter-inch groups. I cannot do so consistently, even on my best day. All right, I can shoot one of those once in a while, and then I clap myself on the back and say I'm not going to do better, and I go home. I'm not a quarter MOA shooter. I'm not really half MOA shooter on a consistent basis either. But given reasonable conditions, I'm a 3/4 MOA shooter or thereabouts. This particular Grendel barrel with factory Hornady ammo does quite that. Now, the best accuracy I ever got out of it was a little bit better than 3/4 of an MOA consistently for a 10-shot group, which was much better than I expected, but that was with hand loads. So this particular barrel chamber is 264 LBC. So it is really optimized for 123 gray and Sierra Match King. And the hand loads with that bullet were just spectacular, but I tried to walk away from hand loading, so I switched to factory ammo. But that's the 18-inch Grendel I still have. You'll see it occasionally in the pictures I do. Right now I'm testing a US Optics Foundation FDN 17 scope on that gun. Okay, this is regarding the earlier blackout question. Yeah, Delta Hornet with the Miller-Radian reticle or Swamp Fox Arrowhead probably does better. The reticle is critical. It doesn't mean that there's a million of bad reticles out there, and there's just only that one, the special one that you need in your life, right? You need your wife and you need that reticle. It's not like that. There's plenty of good reticles out there with a little practice. You can get used to the bulk of them, really. But there are some that are really not optimal, and it varies based on how you shoot, what you shoot, and just your personal preferences. Everybody's eye is different, just different things look different. SWF8 10X is scope has been around forever, and they still can't keep it on the shelf, right? So it's doing something right, but doesn't mean that it's right for everyone. And in your case, it didn't work. Every time you look through a scope, the first thing you see is the reticle. So the reticle is indeed important. All right, I'm ready. What have you got? Can't trust anyone. So if you like this WFA 3 to 15, going up to 5 to 20 is not a bad idea. They just SWFA has this thing they call the sample list. That's where they put up their demos and this kind of stuff and factory refurbished scopes. And they're very, very close to being new. They threw a bunch of stuff there not long ago. If the mil quad reticle works for you, 5 to 20 by 50 is a good idea. And I would check the samplelist.com by SWFA and look there. Around $1,000 for precision with new scopes, probably Miopta Optical 6. This guy that I showed earlier, 5 to 30 by 56, is actually a good option. Brownell's 5 to 25 by 56 is not bad, although I like the 3 to 18 by 56 more. There are a couple options out there, but if you like SWFA, if the reticle works for you, I'd probably stick with that. If you can find one around $1,000, I mean, that's a really good price. They often do a crazy sale for Black Friday, so maybe you can pick one up at that time. Depends on where. So outdoors, I have these. These are custom molded for my ears by a company called Decibels. This is this kind of a passive percussive filter, and outdoors it works really well for me. And they're very comfortable. I spend a lot of time at the range, so they are comfortable because they're molded to my ears. With electronic hearing protection, I use Axel ones, also in-ear stuff because I shoot rifles so much. Outdoors, I prefer something that goes inside the ear. The earmuffs don't work well for me when I set up the way my face is. When I set up behind the stock, it dislodges the right earmuff. When I shoot indoors, it's usually handguns, but then I double up. Basically, I use these and an electronic peltor earmuff over it. Shooting indoors, I always double up. Hearing damage is irreversible, so it's kind of important. It could. The way they do the illumination, it would be very hard for them to do a BDC, the way they kind of route the fiber there. And they made a scope called AccuPower, which was basically the same thing, but without the fiber optic illumination. It's a really aging design. You know, if that's a scope you like, try Steiner P4XI 124x24. It knocks the socks off of the AccuPoint. Thank you, Craig. Really appreciate it. Visit me on locals.com and subscribe, join. If you want to support my channel, I really do appreciate it. Yeah. Due to glass quality and due to compact package and lightweight, if you're shooting blackout, yeah, you're the guy asking about the blackout. Look, how far are you going to shoot? Do you really need all that magnification? Kind of be honest with yourself. I've shot 4-power scopes to 800 yards on man-sized targets just fine. If its scope performs well, I mean, would you take a 1-4 Schmittenbeder short dot or a 1-10 Atibal, right? I take the short dot any time, twice, 3 times on weekends, right? It's a much better scope. It's not all about the magnification range. Quality matters, and P4XI is a very viable design within its performance envelope. So I have the fix, although mine is not a Creedmoor, mine is a 308. I have a mini fix and a blackout pistol. I've never shot the cross. I mean, I've seen it at the shooting range. 277 Fury is a really interesting idea. I'm kind of fascinated by high pressure cartridges. It is potentially the way of the future, and there are a couple of things you can do with those that look very promising to me. But having not shot C-Cross or 277 Fury, I really can't have an opinion. Yeah. So my plan for my fix is actually to go the other direction. It's I will, I'm not that far off from shooting out my 308 barrel. It's not an easy thing to do, to shoot out a 308 barrel. I will probably, so the guys at Q are working on this cartridge called 8.6 Creedmoor. And I will probably eventually take off my 308 proof barrel from my fix and replace it with a 16-inch 8.6 Creedmoor and use that. Partly because this is my general purpose gun that I want to do everything with, from precision to hunting and all that. If I have a chance to test the cross, I obviously will. But I'm somewhat friendly with the guys who work on the optics side of SIG, but I don't really know anybody on the gun side. So I need to see, maybe I can convince the guns and ammo people to let me do an article on one, but I've already had write-ups on it, so I don't know. No, not really. The fixed power scope market is not very big. There are significant development costs to scopes. Several people try to jump in with newer 10-power scopes, and as WFA is still here and they're all gone, there is a reason for it. There isn't really that much. Basically, there is some development with fixed power prismatic scopes, but once you go up in magnification, they start getting huge. So that doesn't work. And with conventional fixed power scopes, there really isn't any development worth speaking of. Yeah, they're kind of cool, but fragile, archaic, and all that. But they worked. Look, I mean, a good shot and good sniper and a good soldier can do a tremendous amount of damage with very archaic equipment, right? So, they are cool looking, but this is not really my cup of tea. I mean, I've seen them, I've looked at them, but I've never spent much time with them. It's not a bad way to go. So, most of my ARs are free float. I have one non-free float AR, right? So, and I use a lot of low power variables, but I'm totally fascinated with this small low power prismatics, because for a lot of things that I do, this is really not a bad way to go. So we'll see how these work out for me. None whatsoever. How's that? Is that a good opinion? I've what was it? I'm trying to find the name. I've used some scopes stolen from the Germans. For example, no, I can't find the name. Is it the F69? Yeah, there's the F69. I've used that. That's a color 6 power. There's a Zeiss scope that was the F something. Germans really did a lot of interesting things with early scopes. Something that's not terribly well appreciated is how much cooperation there was between Germany and the Soviet Union in the years prior to World War II, right? So they had a peace deal and non-aggression pact and all that sort of stuff until Hitler attacked the Soviet Union. But there was a lot of collaboration. A lot of German industry was collaborating with the Soviet Union. After World War II, they took a bunch of German scientists that happened to be in Eastern Germany and took them to Russia to really help with many different defense-related industries in Russia. One of them was optics. Early PE Russian rifle scope that was in a PE Mosin sniper was sort of a was sort of a copy of a German ZF something. PU also was partially designed by Germans, also simpler design and something that Russians could actually manufacture. The PE they had a hard time manufacturing. So there was a lot of cross-pollination there. I've used some of the Russian designs that were copies of old German designs, but not the original German ones. Yeah. So one of the reasons I want to switch to 8.6 Creedmoor in my fix is that I've kind of gotten addicted to trying to shoot subsonic cartridges far away. It's challenging and a lot of fun, and there's very little recoil. There's a kind of a push, but not much recoil. For me, the fix is everything rifle. I hunt with it and I do everything with it, right? So coming for precision shooting, coming off the crosshair makes a difference. But what I did is, excuse me, when I want to do some precision shooting, I basically slap the tangent, the 5 to 25 tangent theta on it, which adds a lot of weight. Sometimes I even put more weight on it, and then it's a nice weighted rifle. And for hunting and shooting offhand and all that, I put a smaller scope on it, and I'm good to go. It's kind of an advantage of a lightweight rifle. It was never designed to be, a precision rifle. 2 weeks ago, I had a PRS guy here with me, Will. His rifle weighs 20 pounds. Good luck humping that uphill, right? So it's just, different applications and different tools. As far as reloading, I'm actively trying to stop reloading. So I will not adopt a new caliber if it's reloading only proposition. I just don't want to do it. I don't know. Bushnell says they're doing fine. Nikon always hated the gun world, so I'm surprised they stayed as long as they did. They're a bunch of peaceniks. They hate everything to do with guns. None of the scopes they marketed were designed by Nikon. They were all standard OEM type scopes made in the Philippines primarily. and I could just branded them and sold them, right? And didn't even support them all that well. So it's not surprising. I always hear a ton of rumors about Zeiss and Bushnell pulling out of the rifle scope market, but I've been hearing those rumors for quite a few years, and they're still here. So I don't know. Right now, the scope market is pretty healthy, so I don't see anybody easily pulling out, but who knows? There are a couple I like. I like the Vortex Micro 3X, seems to work well. I really like the 8.6 power magnifier, although it was expensive. But I did not keep it in a flip mount. I used it in a twist mount where most of the time it would be in my pocket and you can use it as a monocular. And then when I put it on, it stays on, but it wouldn't flip side to side. The two magnifiers I use the most are the Vortex Micro 3X and the SIG Juliet 4, the 4x24 4-power magnifier. These are the two I use the most, and I like both quite a bit. I have a ton of other magnifiers here, Athlon and Samsung. I have a Bushnell magnifier here. Some are wobblier than others, but the SIG Juliet 4 and Vortex Micro 3X seem to be overall my favorites of the flip to side types. Keep in mind, so on the guns where I have a magnifier, I set them up to flip to the right, not to the left. So I use them a little bit differently from what most people do. Good night, sir. Thank you for sticking around for 2.5 hours. And I thought I was going to be done after an hour. Well, still have a lot of whiskey, so I'm good for a while. Okay. And guys, give me a moment. I'm going to mute for just a sec. And I'm back. All right. Where were we? All right. Okay. So, no more questions for now. I'm going to hang out for a couple of minutes. Tell you one of the things I'm looking to do with the prismatic. So, I got a hold of the guys at Primary Arms, and I got this from them. This is the compact ACOG 1.5 to 16 with their ACSS reticle. And this is the Primary Arms GLX 2-power, also ACSS reticle. Good night, Rashad. Thank you for sticking around. But anyhow, so 1.5 power and 2 power, right? But in terms of field of view, the 2 power actually has wider field of view, much larger eyepiece. It has a lot to do with it. A little bit bigger scope. Yeah, to this one probably, right? The GLX. A little bit bigger scope, wider field of view, but more magnification. So it's not all about field of view, but it's not all about magnification either. So it's going to be really interesting for me to play around with these two side by side. Both have the ACSS reticle. And I want to see which one is going to be faster for me up close. Now, with the bright reticle, I keep both eyes open and I transition fairly quickly. It's going to be really interesting to see how it pans out. A lot of people say, oh, it's all about field of view. Well, no, right? So in terms of the perception of the movement, right, when you're panning, when you're scanning, in terms of the perception of the movement, magnification also matters. It's not just about seeing stuff. It is also about how, if you are very magnified, the perception of the movement much faster than it disorients you. So it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see how they to compare. I really don't know how it's going to work out. This is not an experiment I've ever done before, so I'm kind of excited about it. It depends on application, right? So the really micro red dot sites I mostly use on handguns. And on handguns, the red dot sites I use the most are made by this British company called Shield. And Shield RMS pattern, because they are the lowest profile, and because they're the lowest profile, and because I can, all my presentation does everything transfers. I did a video a week or two ago on handgun red dot sites, so look for it in my channel that I kind of go over all my reasoning there. And for micro red dot sites, I generally like the low profile ones like the Shield. Swamp Fox makes one called the Sentinel that fits the same footprint. SIG has the Romeo Zero, which also fits the same footprint, also very low profile. So I like. You guys still there? Yeah, you're still there. You just kicked me out and then joined me back in. How interesting. So, what was I? Yeah. Please put something in the comments if you can hear me, just in case. The broadcast kind of kicked me out and then got me back in. Something weird. So I like the very low profile ones. I haven't had terribly good luck with RMRs, although they're pretty good. I like the Delta Point Pro, but they are taller than I like. I like the low profile micro red dots, and that makes a difference for me. Yeah, I don't hate ACOG. I mean, I like the 3 power. I like the 1.5 micro. I happen to dislike the 4x32, the TA31. Good question. So can you define what is entry level for you? Because for some people, $100 is entry level. For others, $900, right? The reason that, you know, if you're talking about $200-300 scopes, good evening, Mark. You are joining the live cast in a 2-hour and 33-minute mark. It's pretty good. Yeah, sorry to be late. Funny guy. So tell me what you mean by entry level. The basic problem with entry level scope is not so much technologies, right? So, you know, making a decent optical system is not that expensive anymore. So many of them basically try to have too many different features at low price level, and they give up the fundamentals. So when we're looking at more moderately priced stuff, I'm really looking, you know, does it hold zero? Is optical quality decent? Does it adjust correctly? Everything else is gravy. You know, if you have a well-designed, simple reticle, you could do a lot of things with that already. I haven't seen a ton of inexpensive stuff that was good. What sells right now are the inexpensive scopes with every feature under the sun. None of that shit works, but people buy them because it looks good. So, I don't know. I haven't seen a ton of trickling down into the lower end. Where I've seen the trickling down, this trickle down of technologies really work is in the like $900 to $1,700 to $1,000 range. For a lot of stuff, I mean, in a $1,000 $1,500 range, you can get some really nice stuff now that you couldn't before. Very, very few compromises. Opti does that very well. Vortex, Razor, HDL-HT, if you want a second focal plane scope that does a little bit of everything, at less than $1,000, is freaking remarkable. There are a few like this, right? But in the $200 range, there's not that much. Really, the only stuff that I've seen that is kind of doing that right now is these prismatics. One of the reasons I'm looking at this, these are mostly in the $300, $350 range, and they're looking really good. I'm looking at this thing, I'm going, okay, if it doesn't break, why would I, pay $1,100 for a freaking ACOG? Over this. Okay, ACOG is a little smaller. It's not that much small with the mounts, not that much lighter. This thing is a freaking beast, and the view through this is impressive. This is the Swamp Fox 3 power, right? View through this thing is awesome, right? This is this primary arms 2 power. Really impressive. I mean, it's $350. If it doesn't break, if they hold up consistently, okay, you may not like that it's made in China, and that's another topic I want to discuss, this whole not made in China thing. Which is really not a simple argument at all. But it's these $300-$400 prismatics are getting really good. But is that entry level for you, right? So for a lot of people, that's not entry level. So sorry, I know I didn't answer your question very well, but if you can narrow it down for me, I'll give it another shot. Yeah, SCCY pistol did not impress me at all. They still do. So J-Point is made by Shield for them. Shield SMS is basically the same thing as the J-Point, and it uses the same footprint. I actually have one SMS-C, the narrow version of the SMS. I put it on my brother's Springfield Hellcat. It works really well. I like that red dot. Oh, there you go. So I just didn't see it. You specified the range for me. Yeah, there's been some on precision. Like I said, the prismatics in the $300 to $600 range, I'm seeing them to be much better than they used to be. There's been some attention there. There's definitely a trickle down of technologies with red dot sights. You may not like Chinese-made stuff, but $300-$400 Holo sounds are really, really good. It's in terms of performance, really making things difficult for Aimpoint, Trijicon, and all that. Well, Trijicon and Maro I don't like too much, a lot of parallax, but I like the Aimpoints. But I gotta tell you guys, what a lot of these Chinese companies are doing with red dot sights is pretty impressive. And I don't know if it's trickle-down technology, or if they copied something or developed their own. Holosun is a part of a larger semiconductor company. They actually do their own stuff. But a lot of their stuff is very good. With precision scopes, I haven't seen too much drop down into $600 range, but we're beginning some of it with the Vortex Strike Eagle, Swamp Fox, Kentucky Long, and Warhawk, a few others like that. With hunting scopes, not as much. I mean, I've had this WFA 329x42 at $600. I have two of them. I've had them since for probably a decade, and I still haven't seen anything better within that niche. So with conventional scopes, not so much. With prismatics and red dots, yeah, there's been quite a bit. So let me pull up a number that I don't remember. ACOG 5.5 to 50. Ways, hold on, work with me. Thank you, Google. You're fast. Can hide from ARS, can't hide from Google. Details. Trijicon has a horrible website. Oh, there we go, specs. Okay. So Trijicon 5.5 to 50 costs what, $1,500-$1,600 or thereabouts, a little bit more sometimes, and weighs 26 ounces, and it's a fixed 5.5 hours for a 5.5 power scope. Is it a good scope? Yeah, I actually kind of like it, and even larger 6x48. There's certain charm in them, but these were designed to be huge, robust, and really overbuilt. Both of the larger ACOGs were really designed primarily for machine gun duty. And yeah, I mean, it is quite nice, but in that size, price, weight range, I'd probably go for a good quality variable. I think I'd get more out of it. Exactly, yeah. Once prisms go to significantly higher magnification, you either have to get field of view to be a lot narrower, or they become huge. Good question. It kind of personal. So, me personally, for PRS type ranges and also stuff, if you are spotting for hunting or spotting for shooting, it's a different thing. If it's a shooting related thing, I really like to have a reticle, and neither one of those high powered binoculars, to the best of my knowledge, currently has a reticle. Well, like, you can get a spotter with a reticle, so I'd go with that. On the other hand, if this is for prolonged observation, like big eyes, long distance observation, open country, trying to find that pronghorn that's fucking speed goat motoring away at 70 miles an hour somewhere out there. For prolonged observation, there is a big advantage to binoculars. For shits and giggles, I once took a Vortex 20x56 Kaibab binoculars and a spotter that and tried to figure out, how does it work? Do I really get that much of an advantage from using two eyes versus one? And yeah, I do. I mean, low light at comparable magnification, etc., was night and day. But for shooting sports, I really insist on a reticle. I'm kind of divesting all my spotters, sold most of them already, that did not have a reticle. And the spotter I use the most is the Athlon Chronos Tactical. It's a very respectable spotter. I can get better image quality, but this one is flexible and has a reticle. It makes all the difference in the world for me. So depending on application, it's it could be one or the other. No, I think PST Gen 2 is a better scope between these two. XTR 2s are nice, but PST Gen 2 was developed later, and they made sure it outperformed the XTR 2. Rex is an illegitimate child of a drunk donkey and a snail. Now, PST Gen 2 is actually a pretty good scope. It's a serious step up over PST Gen 1. Like with all scope lines, not all, excuse me, don't mean I have to pick my nose on a live cast, but it's itches. So with PST Gen 1, several models were very questionable, but 2.5 to 10x32, the tiny little thing, it was excellent. And 6 to 24x50 was not bad. And the rest kind of were not great. With PST Gen 2, the best one of the line is the 3 to 15x42. And 525x50 is also quite decent. 2 to 10x32 I didn't like too much. 1 to 6 is decent. But they're a serious step up. And for the money, they're very good. I mean, I've confidently recommended them. People like them. I haven't seen too many problems with them. There's an occasional problem, but you have to keep in mind, Vortex is seriously by far the largest company in the sporting optics world right now. So they sell a lot of scopes. You will see some bad ones here and there. Statistically, PST Gen 2 is a good scope, and performance-wise, it does extremely well for the money. It's not necessary, but it really depends on the magnification range. So Raise HD Gen 1 was actually a front focal plane. And Gen 2 is second focal plane. L3 EOTech went, well, EOTech is no longer L3. They were bought out by there was a management buyout. EOTech is now separate from L3. It's much easier to get a bright illuminated reticle with second focal plane, which is why a vortex between Gen 1 and Gen 2 went to second focal plane, and same reason for EOTech. That's to get a bright reticle. It's possible to get a bright reticle in front focal plane, but it's expensive. So Vortex Razor Gen 3 is front focal plane, but it's a much more expensive scope. And that price range, you can already purchase the technology for a brightly illuminated reticle in the front focal plane. Is it necessary? No. Does it help with high erector ratios when you go beyond 1.1 to 6? Yeah, I think it does. But a lot of it is a personal preference, right? So I have both. I mean, the two low power variables, as I was talking about earlier, that recommend the most right now is a Striker 1 to 6, that's second focal plane, and a Vortex 1 to 10, front focal plane. $800 to $1,000. For $800, yeah, I think this is the best. For $2,000, I think this is the best, right? So it kind of comes down to how much you want to spend, right? So, fuck. I haven't tried them all. Most of them are good. I mean, I'm not that picky. It's like if you practice, you'll get used to it. I like trigger tags. I like Timnews. I've had decent luck with a few others here and there. For AR, all my ARs are either Geissler or trigger tag, and some of my ARs are very accurate. In bolt guns, see, the catch is that my bolt guns, I kind of have sort of nice bolt guns. They come from a factory with decent triggers, and I haven't really messed with them too much. I've messed with AR triggers a lot. Some of the bolt guns I've built, like I'm building in super accurate Mosin gun right now. Yeah, I know it sounds weird. And that's probably going to get a Timney trigger, though Huber Concepts is also tempting. So we'll see. But X and Andy, I've a lot of people have been very complimentary. If you're doing like a Remington 700 type build, take a look at the new-ish trigger that David Tubb has. I was very impressed. Generally, one of the best triggers I've ever felt was the trigger on the latest Tubb gun. It's just freaking remarkable. Yeah, and I'm friendly with David Tubb, and he knows his shit. So, but on ARs, most the trigger tag and Geissler. Thank you. I fasted for 24 hours, which, as you may imagine, is not the most comfortable thing for somebody as fat as I am, but it's useful to not eat for 24 hours every once in a while. It makes you think about the harder things in life. Yeah, I think so. One of my sort of quirks is that with front focal plane scopes, I really like to have the reticle illuminated because a lot of the reticles are fairly thin, and on low power illumination really helps. Midas Tech is not illuminated. It is a nice scope and it's done quite nicely. I think the PST Gen 2 has a little bit of an edge though, but both are good scopes. I have no idea. So I'm friendly with Jeff Huber at ZCO, but he doesn't exactly tell me what they're going to develop next. And if he did, I wouldn't be able to tell you anyway. So, I talk to him every once in a while. I like the guy, but honestly, I have no freaking clue. I looked at it briefly. I didn't like it too much, and I didn't like deploy MOA or deploy mil reticle. It's if let's see if I can pull one up. Deploy MOA reticle. Let's get an image. There we go. This is it. Yeah, deploy MOA, deploy mill. Are you talking about deploy MOA radical in a Bushnell forge? Let's see, let me see. I'm trying to find a good drawing. There we go. Still, that's not a good picture. There's a ton of things wrong with that radical. I don't like it very much. So because of that, I didn't look at the forge very much. Okay, there's a through the scope view. There you go. Let me see if I can find it. This is the firearms blog photo and deploy FFP info. Yeah, now I remember. Yeah, I didn't like that radical, so I decided not to test the scope. It was kind of decent, but in my opinion, as far as the radical goes, they screwed a bunch of things up. If I were to make a video on radicals, that would be probably one of the examples of what not to do. Kai Baba me up to 15x. So I have context that drying out a little bit. Stared at the screen the whole day. The current Kai Baba is an 18 power scope. The 15 power is kind of a previous generation model. The latest Miopta 15 is optically better than a Kai Baba and nearly as good, almost indistinguishable from the Swarovski. So if you're just looking at the straight 15 power right now, I think Miopta is probably where it's at. I have not had a chance to really test the new 18 to 56 Kai Baba. I like the 15. It was a really comfortable eyepiece for me. But both Miopta and Swarovski redesigned there since then and kind of moved ahead a little bit. So for 15, yeah, I'd do Miopta. Thank you, Jared. Yeah, so my plan, originally when I started doing the whole live casting, was not to have only me, right? You get to see enough of me in the videos I make. The idea is to pick, so I pick a topic and I see who I can invite. It is seldom when a particular person is a topic. There are a bunch of interesting people there I would love to drag out here, but I'm not a big enough name to attract most of them. I mean, I'd love to have Frank Gully from Sniper Side come on. You know, sometimes we disagree. I have a ton of respect for the guy. He's a good dude, smart guy. He's a spectacular shot and a shooting instructor. I'd love to have David Tubb come here, but you know, I'm not a big enough name, I don't think, to be able to. I'm not shameless enough to just ask them. Maybe I should. I'm kind of friendly with both of them, but I don't want to abuse that too much. They're good people. There are some fellow bloggers that I like to have here. I had Slav Guns here. He's a good dude, like the guy. 2 weeks ago, my buddy Will, PRS shooter, he came over. I really like Will. He's a smart guy. In 2 weeks, I'm going to have Cyclops Joe come and join because, he's a funny guy and talks about scopes, but, he kind of got into this through air guns. I know he rebuilt some 10-meter super accurate air guns and all that. He's a smart dude. He likes to try to come off as a country bumpkin. Don't buy any of that shit. He's a smart dude and he's an interesting guy to talk to. So he's going to be my next guest. And there will be others. I don't have it planned very far in advance. But it all basically comes down to what topic I find interesting, right? So I choose topics and then I think of who I want to invite. Okay. So I don't think that's a very I don't think that's the right way of looking about it. A 1 to 10 LPVO is there to fully exploit the entire range of a typical semi-automatic cartridge. That's it. It's not to give you more magnification for distance. You may not be using, like I use the March Shorty 1 to 8 quite a lot, but at distance I use it most on 6 power, right? I use 8 and closer distance because of the depth of field. It's to give you more precision across the board and to make sure that the scope is not your limitation, right? In a well-designed weapon system, and when I say weapon system, I mean the gun, the optic, various accessories and all that. In the well-designed weapon system, the limitation should be the cartridge, or the shooter, right? But it should not be the scope, it should not be the gun. I hope that makes sense, right? It should be designed and put together in such a way that you are limited by your skill and by what your cartridge can do. Everything else should not be the limiting factor. And modern day semi-automatic platforms have gotten good enough and accurate enough and flexible enough where oftentimes with the 1 to 6 scope, you may not quite get enough precision, may not quite get enough. It may be at closer distances, it may be at longer distances. It can really vary in a use case, on air conditions, on a bunch of different things, right? If you have a 1 to 10 scope that's designed intelligently so it doesn't give up the 1 power performance and gives you more flexibility, you're that much closer to making sure that your gun and your optic are not the limiting factors. Okay. I hope that makes sense. It's not an either or, right? It's a little bit of everything. But you're trying to make it easier for you to hit the target. As long as your cartridge is capable of hitting it, and as long as you are capable of hitting it. I see a question about Chinese being welded, quite a bit wielded maybe. So I'm not sure I understand what you mean. You probably want to clarify on this a little bit. Are you talking about the Chinese being in Syria, or people from Xinjiang provinces, the Muslim who live in Chinese being in Syria? I'm not entirely sure what you mean. If you can clarify, I'll be happy. Okay. Chinese optics. I see. Look, Chinese optics have come a long way, and a lot of the Chinese stuff is quite nicely made. I mean, I don't know what they use in Syria. I haven't been to Syria. I haven't used too much attention. Chinese does not mean crap anymore. Now, there's a lot of Chinese optics that are crap, and quite a few that are perfectly decent. So, Chinese does not mean that it's going to fall apart any second now. Ballistic XLR and the man who designed it? Who designed ballistic XLR? Got me totally confused, man. Ballistics. I have no idea what ballistic XLR is, I'll be honest with you. There's Rex reviews on ballistic XLR. I do not know what ballistic XLR is, so I don't think I can have an opinion. I can probably look into it now. I'm curious. So I'll make a note. I'll take a look. I don't know. Look, so if you're not shooting very far away, you can probably get a better bang for the buck with a second focal plane scope, right? And if you're doing this at night, you should have well-designed illumination. I don't know how far you're shooting. I don't know what guns you're using and all that sort of stuff. If for general purpose hunting scope, a Vortex, a Razor HD LHT 3 to 15 by 50 or 3 to 15 by 42 is exceptionally nice, and it's very difficult to justify a higher end a hunting scope at this point. I mean, you can jump up to the Magnus, like a Magnus, something like that. They're amazing. It's a lot of money. For under $1,000, these razors are just wonderful. And now that they have an illuminated reticle, it's very hard to go wrong. FFP makes a ton of sense once you start extending the distance. For people like me, I mean, I shoot FFP more than anything else, right? So I'm very used to it. So for some of the things I do, I prefer FFP. But for general purpose hunting scope, yeah, I'd probably go SFP and a well-designed illuminated reticle. I haven't looked at them too much. They were distinctly unfriendly when I talked to them at SHOT Shows, so I kind of moved on. I'm busy. It's one of those things, I used to be able to look at everything, but not anymore. I tried to go talk to Right-On Optics at 2 SHOT Shows, one after another, and I basically thought they were a bunch of dicks. And I also know I'm arrogant, right? So I don't like being ignored. Ask a question, they blow you off. You ask another question, they blow you off. I looked around and moved on. They're mostly made by, or the higher-end stuff is made by Japan Optics Limited, which is okay, but not bad. It's the same OEM that makes the Brownells MPO and Crimson Trace. For the money, I thought that the Brownells was the best one of them. The 3 to 18 by 50 is just excellent. It's pretty much it. Like I said, I don't have really a very strong opinion on Right-On products, right? So my home defense gun, basically on close range and high speed, for the longest time had a Shield SIS on it, and it's still a kind of a good option, very robust and works well, and I'm good with it. I've practiced a lot with it, and it's small and light, which I like. More recently, I switched. So my home defense gun has a Meprolite red dot sight called the More Pro, MOR. It's an interesting sight. I think I had some pictures with it. I'm probably going to do a better video on it in a not too distant future. So if you, let me see if I can find a link for you. I wrote an article on Meprolite optics for the Guns and M. I think it was in the red dot issue. And most of them stay in print, but every once in a while, one or the other one ends up being published electronically. And I think yeah, there you go. So the Meprolite one is one of those. So I'm gonna. So here is the link, and there's a picture in there. I'm gonna scroll into it and I'll show you what it looks like. There we go. That is a picture taken in my living room. Let's go on to the. I'm gonna share my screen momentarily. Give me a second, guys. There we go. Share screen. And application window, browser. Sure. Okay, let me see. You should tell me if you don't see it. Okay, that's the Meprolite More. So it's kind of an interesting sight. There is a conventional reflex sight. That's the window that you see, this kind of a greenish thing. It is triple illuminated, LED, fiber optic collector, and tritium. And I don't know if you can see my mouse. If you can, there's 2 little round windows to the left and right of the window contain 2 lasers. Mine has only 1 laser, but it can be 2. A red laser and an infrared laser. I don't do night vision very much these days. I set up my house so that I don't need to. I have some strategically located night lights, so if somebody gets in, I can see them and they can see me. And most importantly, I can distinguish if it's an intruder or one of my kids. Anyhow, so it does a couple of clever things. One of those clever things is that the laser is co-aligned with the dot of the reflex sight. So when you adjust the point of aim of the reflex sight, the laser point of aim moves with it. And because it's triple illuminated and effectively two aiming systems in one, there is some immediate redundancy. And I like redundancy. For home defense, I want more than one thing. The laser takes a lot of energy, but if you don't run the laser too much, and I don't, the battery lasts forever. There are two AA batteries in there. And even if the battery dies, you still have a tritium and fiber optic illuminated dot. It's a fairly beefy sight, but my home defense gun is basically a blackout pistol. And on that, it works quite well. Here's another look at the MOR. This is the one I have here. Yeah, that's the foresight. Let me see if there are any more pictures now. Okay. So it's not a cheap sight. It's probably $800-900 at least, or in the ballpark. But I like all the redundancy. I like all the redundancy in the scope, in the sight, and that's what sits with my home defense gun. So I would suggest using it. To be fair, for home defense, any high quality red dot will work fine. Aim points will work fine. A bunch of others. Because I'm paranoid and I want multiple sighting systems, I just went with the MOR, and it works well for me. And but I mean, there are plenty of options. Well, M5XI since has been kind of replaced by M7XI, and those are very nice. And before XI, there's just 1 to 4 left. So the 1 to 5 M5XI was very nice, but honestly, I don't think it's worth a lot more than that. Yeah, P4 XI has gone up in price, unfortunately. I'm not happy about it. Yes, it was not very popular because Trigicom bungled it up. It had parallax issues and a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of other problems. The Metrolight seems to work quite well. I haven't looked at the Steiner prismatics. People have been asking me for a while. I can get them. I'm friendly with the Steiner guys. But the basic problem is that I'm kind of fascinated about the inexpensive compared to the $300 to $400 range prismatic scopes right now. And I was thinking of going higher end, and looking at a few things like that. But I want to hold off until I explore the batch that I have here. I've seen them when I went to visit Boris Steiner. I go and visit them once in a while. They look to be good scopes, well made, and good optics. But I just kind of ran out of bandwidth. Yes, so the More Pro red dot sight, IDF use it. It is on the short barrel rifles that the officers use. I think the M21 is the more commonly issued one, but officers have the More Pro, yes. I go to Israel a couple of times a year. So my wife is Israeli. I work for an Israeli company, so I spend a lot of time there. I'm a Russian Jew. I come from a long line of highly paranoid people who survived thousands of years of everybody trying to kill them. Redundancy comes naturally to me. Okay. What else you got, guys? And please, no more Rex questions. I'm not going to become an alcoholic because of Rex. Going once. Going twice. Anyone else? I guess not. All right, people. There's still a few. Oh, SRS. Is that new round red dot sights to have? Trigicon SRS, or is no SRO is the new? Oh yeah, that was the triple illuminated one. Oh yeah, now I remember. Yeah, that's the one they bungled up. There was a so SRS had a ton of issues. SRS had a ton of issues. There was parallax, the reticle illumination was bugged up. They just screwed it up. It was a good concept. But Trigicon screwed it up, and in the grand Trigicon tradition, after they screwed it up, when people complained, they said, you don't know what you're doing, and we did nothing wrong. So, honestly, I think it could have been salvaged. With a little more development, it could have been a really kick-ass site. But they didn't do it, and they never admitted they screwed it up. So, Trigicon's reputation did not improve after the SRS. I like to, it was very specific LPVO, the March Shorty, because it has so short that it has a little bit shallow depth of field. So on 8 power, it's actually not great at a long distance, and on 6 with the longer depth of field, it's a little bit better. If you're talking about what I use with LPVOs at the longer distances, it really depends on my shooting position and which exact low power variable it is. With this March 1 to 10, it has a sight focus, right? It has sight focus. So when I have a good shooting position, I go up to 10. Exit pupil gets a little bit smaller, but in good light, it's fine. I start throttling back on magnification if I need more depth of field for some reason, or if the light gets worse. 4x is a good ballpark number for a 4 millimeter exit pupil is a good ballpark number for good general purpose performance, but there's no magic to it. If I have a steady position, I can comfortably get away with a significantly smaller exit pupil in good light. Good night, James. Thanks for sticking around. That's not correct. There are quite a few Trigicon products that I like a lot. I mean, like this, for example, the compact ACOG I really like. And, there are quite a few other scopes from Trigicon that I do like. The 3-power ACOG, the 3.5-power ACOG, the 10-mile looks like a good scope. There are several there. I generally like AccuPoints. I always like the 3 to 9x40 AccuPoint and a bunch of others. I did not enjoy dealing with Trigicon customer service, and as a company culture, they don't like admitting they did anything wrong ever, and I don't have a ton of appreciation for that. I do like the products for the most part. P4XI walks all over the AccuPoint. If you look at them side by side, it's just the IPS design on the Steiner is so much better. It's a much easier scope to use. Between those two, easy choice to the Steiner. Yeah, cookies. After all that whiskey you made me drink with Rex references, trying to get me burned, can't trust anyone. Good night, Franz. Thank you for subscribing. Good night, Aaron. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for asking questions. I have something non-alcoholic here. Oh, there we go. Water. All right, I'll stick around for a couple more minutes, then I will wrap it up. Thank you guys for sticking around with me. Thank you for asking questions. And man, 3 hours, 15 minutes. You're troopers. What is economical to you? Give me a price target. I mean, economical can mean very different things to different people. My eyes are dry and killing me. Okay, there we go. I don't know. I haven't seen any. So this kind of stuff, I mean, kind of helps to have a little more magnification. I haven't really seen anything for 200 and under that was any good. I'll be honest with you. In a $200 range, all I generally recommend is simple hunting scopes like the Vortex Diamondbacks and Burris Full Fields and all that. They're not ideal for closer ranges of the silhouette. I'd suggest expanding your range a little bit. Look at Swamp Fox Patriot, and if you can stretch it, the Kentucky Long Range. It's a significant step up both in price and in quality as well. For $200, I really haven't seen all that much. It's been good. I mean, a couple of decent 2-7x35 scopes like the Diamondback, 39x42s. Most of the other stuff I've seen for $200 has been very inconsistent. If you get a good one, good, but I can't make a recommendation off of something that has not been consistent. That depends on the situation. So I mentioned this in the beginning of the broadcast. So this is an early issue of a Guns and Ammo Carbon magazine. I have a couple of articles here, and one of them is Infrared 101 on infrared, how infrared works and stuff like that. Oh, there we go. And I actually have an image here just so that you get an idea. I have a white hot and black hot images here, and it really varies in terms of what you're looking for. And as far as rifle scopes go, one of the reasons I like Envision's Halo LR so much is that it looks at the image in real time, and you can set it up so that it can flip the reticle from being black or white depending on what you're looking at. So I don't know. Generally, white hot image is a little bit more familiar for me. I've spent more time in that mode, but it depends on what you're looking at. Anytime. You know where my channel is. Subscribe or join, or you can find me on darklordofoptics.com. If there's anything I can answer for you, any way I can help, and don't hesitate. So I think you're new to the livecast. One of the things you'll figure it out is that I will be here until I answer the last questions or die trying. So I don't do that kind of stuff too much for several reasons. One is that the nice stuff is expensive, and the really nice stuff you can't get. For my day job, I run a small company that makes electro-optical test equipment, the stuff that's used to take to test and calibrate and characterize targeting payloads, thermal weapon sites, satellite-based things, stuff like that. So the things I play with at work occasionally, you can't get, right? So I don't. I mean, I'm beginning to look more at commercially available, thermal night vision stuff. It's getting nice enough, but I really ignored it for most of these years because it's, comparatively speaking, it's just not very good. In terms of in terms of my personal preferences of how to set up guns, depending on the situation, and I'm actually I'm doing some consulting with somebody who have an innovative solution for this. But in principle, I do not, for situations where it's just you're not a part of the team, I do not like active illuminators too much. I don't like lasers too much, right? So I have one on my more pro, and it's backup, right? Visible laser gives out your position. Infrared laser gives out your position to somebody with night vision goggles. I prefer to go without active illumination, meaning lasers and stuff, right? The only active illumination I will use, for home defense type thing is a flashlight. And I have very carefully selected my flashlight so that the brightness is bright enough to blind whoever is coming at me, and not bright enough for the reflection off of the white wall to blind me. Right? Active illuminator, it's not blinding the assailant, is not something I want to play with because it's just me, right? So it's may not be terribly popular point. And the only nighttime encounter I might ever be in is if somebody breaks into my house at night. Yeah, I don't have a night vision goggles sitting on my bedstand and all this sort of stuff, right? I'll more than likely, grab my handgun and a flashlight and use the fact that I set up my house in such a way that it will give me the most advantage. So I'm not going to go, I'm not trying to go all Rambo and all this sort of stuff. I use comparatively simple tools and practice a lot. I hope it answers your question, but DBL works well, but there is an approach difference there, and my approach is just a little bit different. All right. Any last questions? Going once. Going twice. And okay. What's the next topic? Look, so the topic for the next live cast, I want to talk about air guns. I like training with air guns. It's cheap practice, and in many places, most places, you can shoot air guns in your backyard. I even have one air gun set up with a grip, kind of like an AR and an AR stock. I have the FX Dreamline, and I shoot a lot with it. And they're stupid accurate, but this really light pellet really moves in the wind. So air guns are really good practice for a lot of stuff. And so I'm gonna bring in another YouTube guy, Cyclops Joe. He's a really good shot, and he's a good air gun guy, among other things. And he shoots everything. And I'm gonna go have a conversation with him about air guns and training and stuff like that. That's the next topic. Generally, I get a lot of my a lot of my different topics from the questions I get in between things. So you can either join a YouTube channel and get into the membership board, or join on the mylocals.com website and ask questions. And if I think that something is worth really elaborating on, I'll be happy to make a live cast based out of that. I like questions, right? So some of the things I know offhand, I've been around this for a long time, mostly optical things. Some I've never heard of, like I think you asked earlier about ballistic XLR. I'll look into it. I enjoy digging into stuff, right? So if I get a question that I'm unfamiliar with, I don't know the answer to, all the research is part of the fun. So ask questions, and you'll have an impact into what the next live cast is. Okay. All right, so like all the live casts, so this will become a regular posted video on YouTube, and I think it's going to hang out on Facebook for a while as well. Barring any last-minute questions, thank you all for joining, and 3 hours, 25 minutes. You guys are troopers. You have endurance, and I really do appreciate all the questions. As I keep on saying, this is the part of this that I really enjoy and kind of gives me a new energy. Trump confirmed positive for corona? Ish. First I hear it. I know one of his aides confirmed positive. Oh yeah, he did 20 minutes ago. I had no idea. I don't know. I think he'll be fine. I mean, so I don't know what's going to happen now. Well, CNN is going to celebrate. The hard left is going to find religion and pray that Trump dies, and everybody else is going to assume the wait and see approach. Barring anything unforeseen, given that he seems to be a generally fairly healthy guy, he's probably going to be fine. And I sure hope he is. I am occasionally critical of Trump, but I voted for him. Like I said, barring something unforeseen, I'll vote for him again. And I hope he recovers fully. What can I tell you? Hawk hunting. Yeah, I've never tried to do hawk hunting with lasers and all sort of stuff, so just haven't done it. So I can't really tell you much about that. I have a ton of flashlights. I've been screwing around with this Phoenix flashlight. It's actually quite good. I like the throw. I like Surefires. All the usual stuff. Nothing terribly exotic. I did a video on this, I think. Or definitely did a write-up on flashlights. One of my beefs with a lot of flashlights, people try to make flashlights super bright. And indoors in a house with whitish walls and stuff, you don't want a flashlight that's so bright that it blinds you. And too many of them are getting a little bit too bright. So I kind of have to throttle it back. Something in the 800 lumen range with a reasonable throw seems to be about right. Maybe 600 to 800. So that with the momentary tail cap is what I'm looking for. Phoenix does not have a momentary tail cap, unfortunately. So I'm probably going to pick up a Surefire or something like that again. I used to use them, but then stopped a while back. Okay. All right. And for the 18th time, going once, going twice, third time, sold. All right, guys, I'm tired. My voice is almost gone. We've been here for 3.5 hours. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for joining me. This will be a video. If there's something else you want, you didn't ask, want to ask in the comments, or go on my locals.com website, ask there. And thank you. Good luck and good night. Yeah, I just looked it up 20 minutes ago. Apparently, Trump tweeted that both he and Melania are corona positive. You have a question? I'm still here, man. Like I said, for as long as you guys have questions, I'll keep answering them. If you got nothing, ask in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. Mid-Pacific. Okay. So, Mark, I do them every 2 weeks. So next one is going to be October 15th. Okay. So EOTech XPS3 on a 16-inch AR, all right. Sounds like a good setup. What do you want to do with it? Okay, that's a good idea. In what way? Okay, so you have to, you kind of have to define the super weird part. Did you adjust the eyepiece carefully? So with the low power variables, because of the adjustable eyepiece, you really need to take your time to tune it to minimize distortion and make it as close to true 1 power as humanly possible. If you just throw it up and it's not adjusted for your eye, it will look weird. You really have to take your time on it. What can I tell you? It's not supposed to talk to the guys. At Vortex. Maybe you got a faulty one. I mean, I have one. I've been running it for a while, and I have not. I have not had any issues really. So I don't know. Good night, friends. Like I said, I don't know what to tell you. Talk to the guys at Vortex. Mine is pretty good. Look, it depends on how you use it, right? So for mostly up close and personal, EOTech or a good red dot sight is the way to go. Right, 1 to 10 is an excellent option if you really want to extend the range and have it do everything from 0 to 1,000 yards to 800 yards, whatever the cartridge is capable of. If long range is not terribly important, add the magnifier to give you a little bit more and be done with it. So, oh, can't hear anything? I wonder. Okay, microphone. No, microphone is working fine. Don't know what to tell you, buddy. For 3.5 hours, everybody heard me just fine. There was a question there I didn't answer. Hold on. Oh, Hodge Defense. I've never used the ARs. I think they had some. I want to say they had some holsters or something I've used, but I've never used the ARs, so I don't know. I've heard of them. They're supposed to be very nice, but also very expensive. I don't have any personal experience. Still can't hear anything? You sure? Nothing at all? Can anybody else hear? Okay. So here's a good question. Does it feel as good as EOTech to you on 1X? Not identical, but pretty damn close, yeah. But do keep in mind, I've been shooting LPVOs for a long time. I was shooting low power variables forever and a day, and I have a lot more mileage with them than with the Holo, with the EOTech, right? So to me, they feel pretty good. But it's entirely possible that a lot of it is familiarity. Okay, thank you, Mark. I was a little surprised. my water bottle. Oh. So, District Sound Lab, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's possible you got like something fell through QC, or maybe your eye just sees it differently. I've seen a couple of these, and I've spent a lot of time with one of the Gen 3s, and I'm very, very, very happy with it. To me, on 1 power, it's very fast. Actually, let's see. Okay. No, it's nicely corrected. Even at closer ranges inside the room, I'm not seeing any issues. And even like this, I'm not losing side picture at all. I don't know. Works well to me. Okay. All right. At this point, I am going to wrap up and go sleep or something. Good night, guys. Thank you for sticking around. And next one in 2 weeks, a couple of days prior to that, I will send out a notification and the topic and all that. But my expectation is that I'll get Cyclops Joe on there. We'll talk a bit about air guns and stuff like that. And then once we open it up to the Q&A, it goes where it goes. All right. Good night, gentlemen.